Chapter 338. A frightening speed like a fish in water. Chapter 338. A frightening speed like a fish in water. Boom. The blood river surged in all directions. Shortly after, the 7 experts of the Saint Realm, who were originally not inhibited by the river, began to change facial expressions. Their domains were overwhelmingly crushed by the river's force. The 7 of them immediately felt as if a mountain which weighed 1,000,000 tons was pressing down on their bodies and suffocating them. How is this possible? My domain was crushed just like that. This is not good. My strength has been suppressed by 70%. Every one of the 7 experts was shocked and outraged by what was happening. They were finally feeling the terror of the blood river. The power of the blood river had exceeded their imaginations. Their domains showed completely no resistance and were quickly swept away. If they knew that Jian Wushuang had suppressed Qi Mei's strength by 70% without using the soul-devouring secret skill, they would perhaps not have found this surprising at all. This little fella is very strange, and he seems to have an incalculable number of unique methods. Don't tussle with him. Just kill him directly. Mo Yun howled. The expressions of the experts turned solemn. None of them looked down on Jian Wushuang any longer. They began to display their killing moves one after another. Arc Light. A black-robed woman with gloomy eyes evoked an incomparably dazzling black light from the blood-red soft sword in her hand. It replaced all the light in the world and blitzed across the void beautifully. Sky-covering palm. A blue-robed, middle-aged man roared as he exerted his palms, and immediately his body grew bigger, his palms all the more enlarged infinitely until they shrouded half of the sky. Death Sickle. A scarlet-eyed bald man unleashed spiritual power from his body and sent the ferocious and bloody sickle he was holding in his hand flying through the void. In an instant, 3 blood shadows appeared in succession, and a terrifying death aura began to suffuse the air. Snake Shadow. Dragon raises his head. Bloody Stab. The 7 experts did not hold back anything. They exerted their killing moves and charged toward Jian Wushuang. The spectating crowd held its breath at the sight of this. Despite having their strengths suppressed by more than 70% in the blood river, the 7 different offensive forces remained terrifyingly powerful. Clutching the triple kill sword in his right hand, Jian Wushuang stood at the very center of the blood river. The sword throbbed frenziedly and emitted a fascinating gas which caused the air to freeze. When he saw the 7 offensive forces coming upon him, Jian Wushuang hardened his gaze and unleashed the maximal force he had built up. The 8th move of the selfless sword technique. Jian Wushuang grunted softly and unleashed World Origin. The triple kill sword began to strike out furiously. The 8th move of the selfless sword technique was called Boundless. A boundless world. A boundless sword essence. A boundless power. Jian Wushuang's battle strength had reached its maximal peak by using the soul-devouring secret skill, and specifically in the blood river. Thus, when the sword cleaved, boom, an explosive and piercing sound was heard in the void, which seemed on the verge of breaking apart as a result. A terrifying sword shadow swept across and met the 7 offensive forces head-on. Bam! A huge explosion, which sounded like a crack of thunder, was heard between heaven and earth. In the middle of the river, a crackling sound began to ring out wildly, as if space was being compressed, and eventually popped. The immense and surging force transformed into a frightening storm which had the power to sweep through and destroy the world. The experts who were watching the battle from the edge of the drill ground were quite a far distance from the battleground, but nevertheless they felt the effects of the storm and could not help but shut their eyes. Only the top-tier experts who had attained divine transcendence, were forcibly able to keep their eyes open. When the storm subsided, the crowd hurriedly looked over at the battleground. They saw that the blood river was still flowing, while the 7 experts of the Saint Realm remained in it. However, Jian Wushuang was missing. Where's he? Could he have already turned into ashes? Is he dead? The spectating experts began to wonder. The 7 people from Holy Emperor Palace were also scratching their heads. Careful! Mo Yun, who was looking at the black-robed woman, suddenly bellowed. Huh! The woman turned her head in great surprise, only to see that a heavy bolt of lightning had unknowingly appeared. The very next moment, an icy sword shadow, which seemed as if it could pierce through anything in the world, drove toward her throat. She frantically shifted her body to one side and narrowly evaded the sword. When it struck the void, instead, a deafening explosive noise was heard, causing the woman to swallow a mouthful of cold air. She knew full well that had her reaction been slower by the slightest, the sword shadow would have perforated her throat and killed her. Having been fruitless the first time around, the bolt of lightning reappeared and flashed toward the bald man. Such speed! The bald man was greatly frightened. It's too fast. A few other people from Holy Emperor Palace were equally frightened. The experts who were watching from the fringes of the drill ground also swallowed cold air. It was indeed too fast, way faster than they could possibly imagine. They could not make out Jian Wushuang's figure at all. All they could see was the bolt of lightning. It could move about freely and appear anywhere it wanted in the blood river. While the river greatly suppressed the strengths of the Holy Emperor Palace, it instead boosted Jian Wushuang's strength. He was like a fish in water. His original speed was already shocking, as seen when he used the Wrath of Gale and Thunderbolt and turned into a bolt of lightning. With the assistance of the road to the underworld, the consequent speed could only be described as terrifying. That was the only word to describe it. Gosh! The 7 experts were watching the bolt of lightning continually shuttle through the blood river. Even if they had not been affected by the river, they would probably have felt powerless against such an outrageous speed all the same. Moreover, since their strengths were suppressed by more than 70%, their speeds were naturally much lower than usual, and thus they had absolutely no chance of keeping up with Jian Wushuang's speed. By making use of his speed, Jian Wushuang could easily smash them one by one. Quick, gather together, and don't spread out, Mo Yun hollered angrily. The other 6 people nodded their heads in agreement. The 7 experts immediately converged while keeping guard on the surroundings. An uproar started among the spectating crowd at the sight of this. It's 1 versus 7, yet he holds the advantage. Many experts were spooked. They could tell from the brief exchanges that the 7 experts had already used their maximal strengths, whereas Jian Wushuang held the upper hand without being direct in his approach. Chapter 339, Bridge of Helplessness, Surge Forth. Chapter 339, Bridge of Helplessness, Surge Forth. His speed is too fast. How can an expert of the Yang Void realm be that fast? What he used was the Wrath of Gale and Thunderbolt, which is the strongest body skill manual in the Holy Emperor Palace. I have no idea how it got into his hands, but the most important factor is the blood river. It has boosted his strength by too much. While in a state of wonderment, the spectating experts held their breaths and continued to watch on. Blood-red water tumbled and surged maniacally through the blood river. Mo Yun and company could faintly see that a bolt of lightning was shuttling through the river at an astonishing speed. The 7 of them, who were gathered together, revealed unsightly expressions on their faces. They had never imagined that Jian Wushuang's speed would be this fast. Jian Wushuang was completely dominating the battle because of his frightening speed, as well as the assistance of the wickedly powerful blood river. Don't panic. This little fella's strength has reached such a high level mainly because of this river and those methods which he used to upgrade his cultivation. However, these two methods aren't easy to use. Although this river has limitless power, he will certainly not be able to maintain the cultivation of spiritual power for much longer, Amo Yun muttered to his companions. The other 6 people nodded their heads. They were also aware that the more powerful a method, the more strenuous it was to execute. We only need to endure for a while longer. He will naturally drop off soon, and then we can kill him, Mo Yun said. However, his expression was somewhat unnatural as he uttered these words. They were 7 experts of the Saint Realm who had mastered different domains, fighting against an expert of the Yang Void Realm. Yet, they had to wait until the opponent was tired before they could kill him. This battle was certainly causing them to lose face and suffer embarrassment. But they had no choice. Jian Wushuang's strength had truly exceeded their imagination, and they could not be blamed. Jian Wushuang's improvement was simply too absurd. It must be understood that when Jian Wushuang became famous throughout the Tang dynasty more than a month ago, he barely had the battle strength of an expert of the Saint Realm. He was later hunted down by Tan Feng and narrowly escaped. It was currently only a little more than a month since then. How much could they have reasonably expected Jian Wushuang's strength to increase by during this period? By Holy Emperor Palace's estimations, Jian Wushuang could very most have become equivalent to an expert of the Saint Realm who had mastered a domain. Reasonably speaking, 7 experts of the Saint Realm who had mastered a domain should be comfortably able to kill Jian Wushuang. Before they set off, they even felt that deploying 7 people was showing too much respect to Jian Wushuang. But what happened in the end? Jian Wushuang's improvement was too incredible. Or perhaps they had underestimated him from the very start. An ordinary warrior would indeed be unable to improve by too much within a month. However, this was not necessarily the case for inverse cultivators like Jian Wushuang. Most importantly, he received a massive piece of luck during this time. Before I started using the soul-devouring secret skill, I was already able to kill a domain master like Tan Feng easily, proving that my battle strength was equivalent to a master of the 3rd stage domain. Now, when I use the soul-devouring secret skill, I am more than capable of holding my own against a supreme expert who has attained the pinnacle level. How can these 7 people think about killing me? A heavy bolt of lightning suddenly solidified in the blood river and revealed Jian Wushuang's figure. His lips were slightly curled upward, while his eyes conveyed a sense of disdain. To him, these were only 7 experts of the Saint Realm, and not one of them had attained the pinnacle level. There was no chance that they could kill him. What a joke! When he saw that they were gathered together, his pupils constricted slightly. These 7 people aren't dumb. They know that I'm fast and have thus grouped up to prevent me from killing them one by one. They're waiting for me to deplete my spiritual power. I cannot allow the battle to drag on. I have to end the battle fast. Jian Wushuang stared icily, with seemingly electric eyes, at the 7 experts in front of him. The potent killing intent that was already on his body began to surge once again. My spiritual power used to be insufficient for me to use that skill. But now, I can use the natural power of all things of the universe to support my usage of heavenly creation skill, while I also have just about enough power to use that skill. Inhaling a deep breath, Jian Wushuang slowly reached out his palm, on which a terrifying spiritual power was building up maniacally. He would emit a loud roar from his mouth when this spiritual power reached its maximum. Azura's secret skill, Bridge of Helplessness. Boom. The void tremored, and the entire blood river began to swirl frenziedly. What's happening? The faces of the 7 experts stiffened. The next moment, below their sights, a blood-red and lofty long bridge appeared at the edge of the blood river and extended out at an astonishing speed. The blood-red bridge contained an inconceivable power. Everyone shook internally when it first appeared. "Retreat fast!" Mo Yin shouted. None of his 6 companions dared to hesitate for a moment and hurriedly retreated. The bridge surged across the spot where they had been standing and stretched until it reached the end of the river. It ultimately ran through the entire river. "What is this?" Mo Yin and company stared in shock at the bridge, which had suddenly appeared on the river surface. The river and bridge were both not only incomparably blood-red, but also incomparably attractive to the human eye. Subsequently, from the edge of the bridge, a frosty figure slowly walked along the bridge toward the 7 experts. With every step he took on the bridge, his aura became a notch more powerful. By the time he reached the center of the bridge, his aura had already reached its peak, while at the same time, his body emitted a strong blood light. The blood light was akin to a heavy blood-red armor, which discharged a monstrous power. Jian Wushuang raised his head and stared at the 7 experts who had become scattered because of the bridge's charge. A roar poured out of his mouth and soared into the 9 heavens. "All 7 of you must die." His roar shook the skies. The entire universe instantly tremored. Even the demons wept, and the gods cried. He simply stood there like the warden of hell. A trace of fear arose from the bottom of the 7 experts' hearts. Nevertheless, they managed to suppress it. Mo Yin bawled, "This is just a harmless trick. Today you have to die." "Then give it a shot." Jian Wushuang's voice was somewhat hoarse. A bolt of lightning began to surge as soon as he spoke. "Hua!" The bolt of lightning appeared beside the bald man, who had been standing closest to Jian Wushuang. Once it appeared, a towering sword shadow immediately struck out. At the same instant, a phantom giant appeared behind Jian Wushuang's back. The giant raised the long sword in its hand and chopped downward. The bald man was profoundly startled. Without thinking, he hastily raised the sickle in his hand and struck out in his attempt to fend off the incoming sword. However, after the 2 of them truly made contact, crack, a fine and delicate noise began to sound. Cracks began to appear on the blood-red sickle, which the bald man was holding. The bald man's pupils severely constricted when he saw what was happening. How is this possible? Mo Yin was also stupefied. Many of the spectating experts all the more widened their eyes. Chapter 340, Chopping Up 7 Saints in Succession. Chapter 340, Chopping Up 7 Saints in Succession. My killing shadow, the bald man gazed in disbelief at the blood-red sickle in his hand. A good many cracks had emerged on his sickle. The next moment, his sickle split into pieces with a clap. Everyone was dumbstruck, while the bald man was all the more mind-blown. His blood-red sickle was not just any magic weapon, but an authentic superior 3rd-grade magic weapon. Many experts of the Saint realm would turn red-eyed and fight maniacally over this grade of weapon. Given that its rigidity was indubitable, how did it crack presently? Did Jian Wushuang break the blood-red sickle with one cleave of his sword? Impossible. Mo Yin, who was standing in the distance, let out a wicked roar. A superior 3rd-grade magic weapon is extremely tough. No matter how great one's strength is, it shouldn't be possible to shatter a magic weapon like that. Unless his sword. Everyone simultaneously fixed their attention upon the sword of killing, which was in Jian Wushuang's hand. A 1st-grade magic weapon. Only a legendary 1st-grade magic weapon can snap a superior third-grade magic weapon. Is the sword in his hand really a first-grade magic weapon? The entire drill ground began to stir. A first-grade magic weapon. Nobody in the long history of Nanyang continent had ever wielded a first-grade magic weapon, yet one had appeared at present. Jian Wushuang paid no attention to the astoundment of the crowd. After sundering the blood-red sickle in the bald man's hand, his power did not diminish at all, and he continued to strike toward the man. Number 1. The triple kill sword easily sliced through the man's body and brought with it a smear of scarlet. The bald man, who had mastered a domain and attained the second stage domain, was the first to die. But Jian Wushuang's figure did not take even a moment's break. After killing the bald man, he transformed into a bolt of lightning once again and instantly appeared in front of the black-robed woman. The triple kill sword in his hand struck out mercilessly once more. This is bad. The black-robed woman turned pale out of fear and hastily brandished her soft sword to resist the attack. A similar scene happened once again. The triple kill sword cleaved the soft sword into two before slicing through the woman's body. Number 2. Jian Wushuang repeated the same phrase structure without a hint of emotion in his voice. His figure then transformed and reappeared in front of a blue-robed middle-aged man. Number 3. The man was dismembered as soon as a sword light flashed. Run! Run quickly! The 4 remaining people from Holy Emperor Palace were absolutely terrified. They had already lost all courage to compete with Jian Wushuang. However, the boundless strength of the blood river they were trapped within came frenziedly at them and restricted their movement speeds. As a result, they could move only as fast as snails and were unable to escape. Number 4. Jian Wushuang appeared in front of the 4th expert, and subsequently, Number 5. Number 6. Of the 7 experts of the Saint Realm, 6 were slaughtered by Jian Wushuang in the blink of an eye. Every one of them was killed in one stroke and was completely unable to retaliate. Finally, Jian Wushuang appeared beside Mo Yun. Your turn, Jian Wushuang spoke in a chilly voice. Standing in the middle of the blood river, Mo Yun stared at Jian Wushuang with an unprecedented horror in his eyes. It was not just him. The spectating experts had gone completely quiet a long while ago because they had been stupefied. All it took was an instant. Within an instant, 6 of the 7 experts from Holy Emperor Palace had been slaughtered. It was too fast and too easy. These dignified experts, who had each mastered a domain, seemed like resistless babies in front of Jian Wushuang. The battle strength which Jian Wushuang had exerted within this instant had caused everyone to shudder in fear. What they did not know, in fact, was that Azura's secret skill was a very powerful method in itself. The first stage domain, known as the Road to the Underworld, was essentially the formation of a realm which suppressed the strengths of the people within, particularly opponents. Conversely, the second stage domain, Bridge of Helplessness, was completely different. It was used to elevate one's offensive power. After the bridge was stretched out, any one of Jian Wushuang's attacks would be amplified and expanded in power by it. It also enabled the power of the first-grade magic weapon, the triple kill sword, to be completely unleashed. This was why Jian Wushuang possessed sufficient battle strength to slaughter the experts of the Saint Realm in one stroke each. Additionally, the experts' strengths were greatly suppressed within the Blood River, and thus they were unable to make use of their speeds and strengths. They were also forced to scatter because of the onrushing Bridge of Helplessness. This provided Jian Wushuang with an opportunity to slaughter them as easily as chickens. Within an instant, he had slaughtered 6 of them. At present, Mo Yun was the only person from Holy Emperor Palace who was still alive. Whoosh! The sword light was as merciless as ever. Mo Yun began to shudder and pulsate as soon as the massive power began to burst forth. He knew that he had absolutely no chance to survive a thrust of the sword. His pupils turned blood red instantly. Ah! After making a roar. Mo Yun forcefully smacked himself between his eyebrows, and immediately a large mouthful of blood poured out of his mouth. He waved a hand and caught hold of a mouthful of blood. He held it firmly in his hand before smacking his palm viciously at Jian Wushuang. At the same time, his voice began to reverberate. This young fella's talent has no equal throughout history. Holy Emperor Palace would suffer a great catastrophe if he isn't killed. Kill him. We must kill him. There was insanity in Mo Yun's voice. Shortly after, a thump was heard, and his body ruptured. Before the triple kill sword touched Mo Yun's body, the latter ruptured and turned into a heap of blood mist which suffused toward Jian Wushuang. Because the blood mist was too near and was obviously coming in on him, Jian Wushuang maneuvered his body to one side, but was unable to evade it completely. Some of the blood, mist, thus smeared onto his arm. Strangely, the entire ice nether valley quietened down when Mo Yun's body ruptured and turned into the blood mist. It was dead silent like never before. The thousands of experts who were present simultaneously revealed extremely colorful and splendid expressions, while their eyes were firmly fixed upon Jian Wushuang. Holy Emperor had shown up today as a group to kill Jian Wushuang. They were made up of 7 experts of the Saint Realm. But in the end, all of them were killed in an instant. They were not only experts of the Saint Realm, but also masters of a domain. Every one of them was top tier on Nanyang continent, yet they were utterly slaughtered by an expert of the Yang Void realm. Was this an act? Am I dreaming? Everyone was completely stunned. With a sword in one hand, Jian Wushuang stood upright in the void, frowning at his own arm. This arm had just been spattered by the blood mist, which Mo Yun turned into, and a patch of blood-red speckles now appeared on it. These speckles looked extremely weird and contained a peculiar power. These speckles, Jian Wushuang's complexion changed slightly. That's a blood soul mark. Wine Master's voice was suddenly heard. Chapter 341, Blood Soul Mark. Chapter 341, Blood Soul Mark. Wine Master walked towards Jian Wushuang and the others. Swordsman, my little friend, you've really impressed me today. Wine Master smiled and said, Swordsman, I really admire what you've done. Lady Black also looked at Jian Wushuang. Third brother, there was a hint of happiness on both Wang Yuan and Yang Zishuan's faces. Even they didn't expect too much from Jian Wushuang when the 7 experts of the Saint Realm joined the battle, but Jian Wushuang just smiled slightly, looked at Wine Master, and asked, Do you know about this mark, Wine Master? I know what it is, Wine Master said and nodded, but his face looked serious as he continued. That's a unique trick of Holy Emperor Palace, the Blood Soul Mark. The Blood Soul Mark is more like a curse. A curse? Jian Wushuang was shocked. It's almost the same as a curse, but the Blood Soul Mark will not hurt you directly. It has only one purpose, which is to make sure you have nowhere to hide. Wine Master explained to him. Once you've been cursed with the Blood Soul Mark, it will consistently release a formless power that any expert who has mastered the Blood Soul Mark will be able to sense your location easily. Jian Wushuang's face changed. So, you mean Holy Emperor Palace can easily track down third brother? Yang Zishuan promptly asked. Yes. Wine Master nodded his head seriously and continued. The Blood Soul Mark is designed for hunting or revenge. So, many people in Holy Emperor Palace have cultivated the skill. Those experts use it when they meet danger outside. When they are about to be killed by someone, they will use the skill to cast the blood soul mark on the enemy, and then the other experts in Holy Emperor Palace will find the enemy and kill him. It really is a special skill. Mo Yin knew that he would die. Therefore, he cast the blood soul mark on you when he was dying so that the experts in Holy Emperor Palace will be able to track you down and take revenge. Master, can the blood soul mark be erased? Yang Zishuan furrowed his eyebrows and asked. It can be erased. Wine Master nodded, but then signed and said, it is easy to get rid of it. The blood soul mark can be erased by simply using spiritual power, but this method takes a long time. Under normal circumstances, it would take at least 1 month to remove it completely. A month? Yang Zishuan's eyes darkened, and he said, Holy Emperor Palace will have tracked him down within a month. Indeed. So, swordsman, my little friend, you are in big trouble this time, Wine Master said solemnly. Big trouble. Jian Wushuang agreed secretly. He knew that, since he was cursed with the blood soul mark, Holy Emperor Palace would be able to find him without a hitch. Holy Emperor Palace's wish to kill him was abundantly clear. Moreover, Jian Wushuang killed 7 of their Saint Realm experts, so once Holy Emperor Palace heard the news, it would not leave him any chance to survive. In fact, it was because Holy Emperor Palace knew so little about one Wushuang's strength that they lost these 7 Saint Realm experts. However, the next time Holy Emperor Palace took action, it would be totally different. Third brother, what are you planning to do? Wang Yuan and Yang Zishuan looked at Jian Wushuang. What can I do? They will chase me down and overpower me with numbers, Jian Wushuang said, and smiled indifferently. Let's talk about that later. First, we should leave here and find a place where little sister can rest. All right, Wang Yuan and the others all nodded. Then they began to walk away, exiting Ice Nether Valley. There was an enormous amount of experts standing on the drill ground, including the experts from Ice Nether Valley, but none of them dared to block their path. They only stood there silently and watched them leave. The whole drill ground burst into an uproar as soon as Jian Wushuang and his companions were gone. He left. That monster finally left. So terrifying. A person at the peak of the Yang Void Realm actually killed the 7 Saint Realm experts from Holy Emperor Palace. Incredible. Haha. Holy Emperor Palace suffered a great loss this time. 7 Saint Realm experts, and they all mastered domain. Even Holy Emperor Palace will be distressed. It is not over yet. Mo Yin placed the blood soul mark on Jian Wushuang, so he cannot escape for at least 1 month. Holy Emperor Palace will definitely try to kill him again. But they sent 7 Saint Realm experts this time, since they were all killed by Jian Wushuang, who will Holy Emperor Palace send to kill him next time. As far as I'm concerned, Jian Wushuang's strength has already reached the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. Normal Saint Realm experts, even those who have mastered domain, will not be a threat to him. If Holy Emperor Palace wishes to kill him, they will have to get some Holy Masters to do it. Holy Masters. The 4 Holy Masters of Holy Emperor Palace. Wow, those 4 old monsters. I'm really looking forward to it. The whole drill ground was in chaos as all the experts were busy talking and analyzing the situation. Their conversations were all about Jian Wushuang and Holy Emperor Palace, while few of them cared about Ice Nether Valley anymore. Compared to Jian Wushuang killing the 7 Saint Realm experts of Holy Emperor Palace by himself, the death of Yi Chun in Ice Nether Valley was not an issue. Those experts were all stunned and filled with expectations for what would happen in the future, except for one man in the crowd who was extremely terrified. That man was Nie Wuxin. That boy's strength. So horrific. Niao Wuxin was still in shock as he kept mentally replaying the scene where Jian Wushuang killed the 7 Saint Realm experts. He had just had some conflicts with Jian Wushuang last night. He even tried to force one Wushuang into giving him the leaf from the world tree. He had paid no attention to Jian Wushuang and Qi Mei, but what he saw today at the drill ground scared him to death. His nerves were on edge, worrying that Jian Wushuang would kill him directly. Only when Jian Wushuang was finally gone did he manage to catch his breath. Fortunately, he didn't notice me. He didn't. Niao Wuxin was filled with fear after what happened, so he hastened the strong man with purple hair, who was also still in a great shock, and said, "Go. Let's go back right now." Niao Wuxin didn't want to stay in Ice Nether Valley any longer. However, as he was leaving Ice Nether Valley, just as he had exited the gate, Shua, a gloomy old figure blocked his path. The old man was Qi Mei. He looked at Niao Wuxin with a hint of a cold smile on his face. "Master Wuxin, what a coincidence. Why are you in such a hurry? Where are you going?" Seeing Qi Mei in front of him, Niao Wuxin began to falter, and he almost wet his pants in terror. Even the strong man with purple hair next to him was frightened into a cold sweat. Little bastard, I refrained from killing you because I was restrained by swordsmen, but now there is nothing standing in my way." Qi Mei's voice was cold. Then, and the next second, he abruptly took action. In a mere flash, Niao Wuxin and the strong man with purple hair became 2 corpses. Chapter 342, The 4 Holy Masters. Chapter 342, The 4 Holy Masters. The battle in Ice Nether Valley, especially the news of Jian Wushuang killing 7 Saint Realm experts by himself, spread rapidly like a hurricane. The entire Nanyang continent was shocked by it. Jian Wushuang was also remembered by all the experts in Nanyang continent as an incredible monster-like warrior. In a town near Ice Nether Valley lied a contact point for alchemy school, Jian Wushuang, and others were staying there for now. In the hall of the contact point, Jian Wushuang and Yang Zixuan sat by a table, waiting in silence. Before long, Wang Yuan and Wine Master walked in. "How is little sister?" Jian Wushuang instantly asked. "She will be fine," Wine Master smiled and said, "That little girl has a very special constitution. Even I can't decipher its secrets. Her heart and soul, though they were damaged a lot, will recover over time. So it's not a big deal." "That's great," Jian Wushuang said, and nodded while finally feeling relieved. "Third brother, the person you should be worrying about right now is not little sister, but yourself." Wang Yuan looked at Wan Wushuang with a serious look and said, "What you're facing right now is far more serious than little sister. You have to figure out what to do." "That's true. Holy Emperor Palace is not a force to be trifled with," Wine Master said directly to Jian Wushuang. "Holy Emperor Palace is like an overlord of Nanyang. Although they are always ranked the same as Alchemy School, they are in fact slightly superior to Alchemy School, no matter in history, culture, or overall strength. Although this time you killed 7 of their Saint Realm experts, which is a great loss to them, you still didn't weaken their core strength at all. What's more, now that Holy Emperor Palace knows your actual strength, they won't leave you any chances. Once they move, they will make sure to take your life. If I am not wrong, Holy Emperor Palace will send one of their 4 holy masters to kill you." "4 holy masters?" Jian Wushuang asked and raised his eyebrows. Previously, he had heard Mo Yun speak about the 2nd holy master, who must be one of the 4 holy masters. The 4 holy masters. How should I put it? They are strong and dreadful, Wine Master said solemnly. Jian Wushuang squinted. He knew that Wine Master was a super expert, who had reached the pinnacle. His strength would definitely be ranked at the top in the Nanyang continent. The Great Elder, a warrior with the greatest strength out of all those experts, was just like Feng Daoyang of Ice Nether Valley. He was only equal to Wine Master in the aspect of battle strength. With his battle strength, Wine Master should be unrivaled in the Nanyang continent, but he called the four holy masters dreadful, so the four holy masters should be exceptionally strong. The four holy masters of Holy Emperor Palace are indeed very powerful. Wang Yuan also commented in a solemn tone. Since he was the young master of the alchemy school, and alchemy school had many conflicts with Holy Emperor Palace over the years, he knew a lot about Holy Emperor Palace. I've heard from my father that each of the four holy masters have truly reached the pinnacle and have lived for hundreds of years. Their cultivations are immeasurable, and each one of them can easily eliminate a top sect. Moreover, the four holy masters are ranked by their battle strength from the first to the fourth. The fourth holy master is a little weaker, while the third holy master is slightly superior to him. The second holy master is even stronger. As for first holy master, he is truly an old monster, and is regarded by many people as the strongest expert in Nanyang continent. Jian Wushuang was shocked after hearing this. The four holy masters were all experts who had reached the pinnacle. Even in Ice Nether Valley, the strongest among the three valleys, there was only one supreme expert that had reached the pinnacle. I've met second holy master and fourth holy master before, and had fought with fourth holy master, but I lost the battle, Wine Master said. What? Jian Wushuang, Wang Yuan, and Yang Zixuan were all shocked. Even Wine Master couldn't beat fourth holy master, the weakest of the holy masters. Don't doubt it, all four holy masters have lived longer than me. In addition, the amount of manuals and treasures in Holy Emperor Palace is enormous. So it's normal for them to be stronger than me, even though we are at the same level of cultivation. Especially first Holy Master, who is indeed a legend. But it would be an exaggeration to call him the strongest expert of Nanyang continent. Wine Master smiled and said, Is there anyone who is stronger than first Holy Master? Wang Yuan looked at Wine Master. Of course, Wine Master chuckled and said, Nanyang continent is not as simple as you think. On the surface, Alchemy School and Holy Emperor Palace are indisputable overlords with connections to all the strongest experts. However, in fact, those top experts all know that there is one person in Nanyang continent who is far beyond their reach, Wine Master said. Who? Jian Wushuang, Wang Yuan, and Yang Zixuan immediately looked at Wine Master. They were all eager to hear about the expert, who was truly the strongest in the Nanyang continent. This person is the mysterious monarch of Tang Dynasty. Wine Master said. Him. Jian Wushuang was surprised. The monarch of the Tang Dynasty is stronger than first Holy Master. Wang Yuan was also shocked. Believe me, Wine Master smiled and said, You are all young, so there are many things you don't know about. Even you, Wang Yuan. Although you are the young master of the alchemy school, you are not your father, so what you know is limited. But an old fellow like me knows some things. Many old freaks like me know that the most horrifying power in Nanyang continent is neither Holy Emperor Palace nor alchemy school, but the monarch of Tang Dynasty. He is the reason why none of the sects or powerful forces dare to meddle with the Tang Dynasty. He, as one person, is much scarier than the whole Holy Emperor Palace. There is a saying among us old freaks, the monarch of Tang can fight against all of Nanyang. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang and the others were astonished. A man who was strong enough to fight the whole Nanyang continent by himself. Though it sounds a little exaggerated, it still showed the monstrous strength of the monarch of Tang Dynasty. It seems like I look down on Nanyang continent. Jian Wushuang smiled and sighed to himself. He always thought that the monarch of Tang dynasty was mysterious, but he had no idea that the monarch had such horrifying power. All right, that's enough talk about him. What you need to worry about is the 4 holy masters. We don't know which one Holy Emperor Palace will send to kill you. Wine Master looked at Jian Wushuang and said, "Your strength is nearly equal to mine, so you will stand a chance to surviving if Holy Emperor Palace sends 4th Holy Master. But you will be in trouble if Holy Emperor Palace sends 3rd Holy Master to go after you." Chapter 343, Which Holy Master? Chapter 343, Which Holy Master? Jian Wushuang listened carefully to Wine Master with a solemn face. He knew what Wine Master said was true. The main reason he was able to kill the 7 Saint Realm experts of Holy Emperor Palace alone was that he had used Road to the Underworld and Bridge of Helplessness to limit their abilities. Without those skills, his battle strength was only about the same as Wine Master, if not weaker. However, among the 4 Holy Masters of Holy Emperor Palace, even the weakest one, the 4th Holy Master, was stronger than Wine Master. "Third bro, I have sent a message to my father asking him to protect you." Wang Yuan said, "I have mentioned you many times, but you were not strong enough to draw his attention. Now, things should be different. You have shown your great talent by killing those 7 Saint Realm experts on your own at such a young age, so Alchemy School will attach more importance to you. Besides, you and Holy Emperor Palace are deadly enemies. Keeping you alive benefits Alchemy School, so he should agree." Jian Wushuang took a look at Wang Yuan and nodded slightly. "There will be a reply within a day or 2. I only hope Holy Emperor Palace doesn't come to kill you before then," Wang Yuan said. He believed Alchemy School would step in to protect Jian Wushuang. From what he knew of his father, he believed he was right. They waited quietly at the contact place. In the Alchemy School, among the lofty palaces, the Alchemy School's sect master and several high-powered elders gathered in the central palace, talking about whether they should step in to protect Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, such a young man, killed the 7 Saint Realm experts of Holy Emperor Palace alone. Amazing! Young Master is lucky to have made such a friend in a weak dynasty. But such a genius doesn't belong to the Alchemy School. The elders were expressing some amazement and wonder. On the chair above, a middle-aged man with a mustache, wearing a purple robe, sat coldly. Looking carefully, he physically resembled Wang Yuan. The fat middle-aged man was Wang Yuan's father, the Alchemy School's sect master, Wang Yan. He really is a genius. Wang Yan marveled at it, but he secretly shook his head and then said, "Unfortunately, we can't protect him." Hearing that, elders in front of Wang Yan became silent. It was true, they couldn't. If it were anyone else, Alchemy School would extend its hand. But Jian Wushuang was a special case. They had agreed that the Alchemy School would never stand between Holy Emperor Palace and Jian Wushuang. Never. Tell Wang Yuan, Alchemy School will not step in. Bring him some elixirs, that's the only thing we can do. Wang Yan sighed, helplessly. Holy Emperor Palace, an overlord of Nanyang, located on a large island. There were mountains and rivers on the island, with many pavilions rising from the center of those mountains. On the top floor of a pavilion, the Holy Emperor Palace Master and more than 10 elders had gathered. The current mood was very subdued because they had just received the news about the 7 Saint Realm experts who had been killed by Jian Wushuang. By Jian Wushuang alone. 7. We only have so many in total, but we lost 7 of them this time. An elder of the Holy Emperor Palace shouted sadly and angrily. The other elders also looked pale. Saint, realm experts were the most important forces of a sect. That was true even for Holy Emperor Palace. It was a big loss for Holy Emperor Palace. The dead are dead, Holy Emperor Palace Master, Yi Tianming said in a deep voice. What we should worry about is Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. The mere mention of his name made the elders of Holy Emperor Palace narrow their eyes. Only a year ago, Jian Wushuang had just been a boy that they paid little attention to. However, he had made incredible progress in 1 year. He improved at such an amazing speed. Most importantly, he was so young. According to the information, Jian Wushuang was only 22 years old now. A young man who was only 22 years old had killed 7 of Holy Emperor Palace's Saint Realm experts on his own. What did that mean? Elder Mo Yun left these words before he died. Yi Tianming's eyes were cold as he said, if we don't kill him now, he will bring a great disaster to us one day. He is right. Jian Wushuang is still young, but he has improved at such a fast pace, way too fast. He already has these achievements at such a young age, only 22 years old. In a few years, won't he be able to easily destroy Holy Emperor Palace? Kill him. Send him to hell. The elders in the pavilion were all furious. I'm afraid we won't be able to kill him ourselves. We will need to ask for help from the 4 holy masters. An elder said, I will ask them immediately, Yi Tianming said. Yi Tianming and the elders quickly went to the foot of a giant mountain, where a cyan-clothed boy was waiting quietly. Yi Tianming took out a piece of paper and a writing brush. Then he wrote a letter and gave it to the cyan-clothed boy. Please wait a moment, Palace Master. The cyan-clothed boy took the letter and walked along the road to the giant mountain. Yi Tianming and the elders waited while the elders secretly discussed it. Do you think they will send? It should be 4th Holy Master. He is strong enough to deal with Jian Wushuang. Any one of them can easily kill Jian Wushuang, but which one does it will depend on who isn't busy at the moment. Anyway, first, Holy Master will not do it. That's for sure. Shut up, Yi Tianming shouted deeply. The elders immediately closed their mouths. At the same time, the cyan-clothed boy could be seen walking back. He came to Yi Tianming, bowed, and said, Palace Master, 2nd Holy Master said, he will be here in 3 days. 2nd Holy Master. It's going to be 2nd Holy Master. Yi Tianming and the elders were all shocked. Then they waited quietly for 3 days. 3 days later, a slender elder in a black robe arrived. He was the 2nd Holy Master. Chapter 344, 3-Day Drunk. Chapter 344, 3-Day Drunk. At the contact place for alchemy school. In the courtyard, Jian Wushuang was practicing his sword arts while Yang Zhaixuan and Su Ro sat quietly at a table on the side. Though Su Ro had regained consciousness, she still looked pale and sad. Apparently, she hadn't recovered from the heavy blow yet. She had been so shocked by Yi Chen's betrayal that it had even affected her physically, and she had yet to recover. Third bro. A voice was heard, and Wang Yuan ran in. Jian Wushuang stopped and looked over at Wang Yuan. Any news? Wang Yuan nodded, but he was hesitant and nervous as he said, My father said the alchemy school won't step in. What? Yang Zhaixuan and Su Ro were surprised. This time, Holy Emperor Palace would definitely send one of their holy masters. If alchemy school didn't help them, how could they defend against them? Jian Wushuang just raised his brows while listening to the news. There was no sorrow or happiness on his face. I don't understand his decision either. I asked him repeatedly, but he only told me that it's not because the alchemy school fears Holy Emperor Palace. It's because of some special circumstances. So, Wang Yuan paused and reached out. Here are 2 elixirs, a spirit recovering elixir and an yin-yang dark dragon elixir. Spirit recovering elixir, the highest level of healing elixir on the Nanyang continent. Even inside the alchemy school, no one can refine it. The elixir helps restore spiritual power and can quickly recover from a wound, which can be very useful in your life, is on the line. Yin-yang dark dragon elixir. It can increase your strength for a short period of time, but it has a small side effect. My father asked me to give them to you, and he said it's the only thing alchemy school can do to help you. Looking at the elixirs in Wang Yuan's hands, Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Whether it was the spirit recovering elixir or the yin-yang dark dragon elixir, he knew they were both top-level elixirs. Like magic weapons and manuals, elixirs were also classified into 3 levels. Spirit recovering elixirs were superior 2nd grade. Yin-yang dark dragon elixirs were at a slightly lower grade, medium 2nd grade. On the Nanyang continent, few alchemists could refine these elixirs. Therefore, these 2 elixirs were valuable. Third bro, I'm sorry. Wang Yuan looked at Jian Wushuang with guilt. I'm not a disciple of alchemy school, and alchemy school has its own concerns. So it's normal. You have nothing to apologize for. What's more, you have given me 2 elixirs, which helps me a lot. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and accepted the elixirs. He was Wang Yuan's brother, but he had little connection with the alchemy school. He was grateful that the alchemy school gave him a spirit recovering elixir and a yin-yang dark dragon elixir. If he had a chance, he would return the favor. Don't worry, I will be staying with you. If you die, I will die too. I don't believe my father will still sit by idly, Wang Yuan said in a deep voice. Don't be silly, Jian Wushuang said, then glanced at Wang Yuan. I'm staying as well. Yang Zhaixuan looked at Jian Wushuang. Third bro. Su Ro gave him a stern look. They were like a family, so, of course, they would live or die together. None of them would abandon the others. Jian Wushuang was greatly touched. He smiled and said, let's not talk about it anymore. We haven't been gathered together in a long time. Today, let's have a good drink. Okay. Wang Yuan nodded heavily. Today we must have a good drink. They moved to a stone table, and Jian Wushuang took out a pot of wine, pouring each one of them a drink. What's this? It smells good. Wang Yuan took a deep breath, smelling the aroma of wine and marveling at it. It does, Yang Zhaixuan said and nodded. It really was a hard-won wine. Cheers, Jian Wushuang said, then raised his wine and smiled. Wang Yuan, Yang Zhaixuan, and Su Ro also raised their glasses, then they guzzled them down. However, Jian Wushuang only put it under his nose without drinking it. Third bro, why didn't you drink yours? After emptying his glass, Wang Yuan noticed Jian Wushuang's glass was still full, so he frowned. But his face turned red, and he quickly began to feel dizzy. The wine, Wang Yuan's voice became soft, then he fell on the stone table. Third bro, Yang Zhaixuan felt dizzy and foggy. He shook his head fiercely, trying to stay awake, but he fell asleep as well. Su Ro's face was also red. She took a deep look at Jian Wushuang. Then she fainted too. After that drink, everyone was drunk except for Jian Wushuang. I knew it. An old figure walked slowly towards him. Senior Wine Master, said Jian Wushuang. Then he stood up and smiled. How was my 3-day drunk? Wine Master asked. It deserves its reputation. They all became drunk after only 1 drink, Jian Wushuang said. Of course. It was made 1,000 years ago by the best winemaker on the Nanyang continent. 1 drink can even make me sleep for 3 days, let alone them. Wine Master smiled slightly. Then he looked seriously at Jian Wushuang. Young man, you really want to confront Holy Emperor Palace by yourself. Yesterday, Jian Wushuang asked Wine Master for a pot of 3-day drunk. Wine Master had realized what Jian Wushuang planned to do. What else can I do? Jian Wushuang asked, and smiled in an odd manner. I have no other choice but to face them because of the blood soul mark. But these 3, I understand how they are. If I didn't do this, they would insist on going with me. The resentment is between me and Holy Emperor Palace, so I'll take care of it on my own. There's no need to get them in trouble. Looking at them all, bent over the desk, Jian Wushuang was determined. Even if it was a crisis for Wang Yuan, Yang Zishuan, or Su Ro, he would protect them, let alone his own problems. Be my brothers, we should share our joys, but bear the sorrows. Only by me. Chapter 345, Preparations. Chapter 345, Preparations. Since you have decided, I won't say anything. Wine Master looked at Jian Wushuang with a serious face. Then he took out 2 golden purple light beads, which seemed ordinary but contained an enormous attack power. What are they? Jian Wushuang looked at him in surprise and asked. They are demonic grenades. I got them by chance. Wine Master said, this small bead holds an enormous power with a sophisticated operation method. As long as it recognizes you as its owner, you can detonate it with your mind. I tested one once, and the power it released shocked me. If used properly, a demonic grenade can threaten even a pinnacle Saint Realm expert. The remaining 2 are yours. Consider it a gift in honor of our relationship. Thank you so much, Jian Wushuang said gratefully. He took the golden purple light beads and held them in his hands tightly. After sensing the power of the demonic grenades, cruelty rose in his eyes. When will you set off? Wine Master looked at him and asked. Now, Jian Wushuang said in a low voice. Wine Master nodded and said, make sure you are prepared. Please take care of them, Jian Wushuang said. Don't worry. Experts from Alchemy School will look after them, Wine Master said with a smile. Jian Wushuang nodded. He looked at Wang Yuan, Yang Zishuan, and Su Ro once more, then he took a deep breath and departed. After getting the 3 of them situated, Wine Master also left, heading in the direction that Jian Wushuang had gone. In an ancient, vast, and majestic mountain range, at the very center of the mountain range, a giant mountain rose, at least 1,000 feet high. It was known as the Skyward Mountain. A black-clothed young man, Jian Wushuang, was standing at the top of Skyward Mountain with a long sword on his back. Then he sat down and took out several interspatial rings. He got them from the 7 Saint Realm experts of Holy Emperor Palace. After he killed them and took their interspatial rings, he had not had a chance to carefully inspect them until now. 7 interspatial rings in total. He began checking them one by one. He had to admit that the 7 Saint Realm experts from Holy Emperor Palace, who had all comprehended domain, each had a large number of valuable assets that even included some rare treasures. Elixirs, manuals, and magic weapons as well. Among the treasures, there was one that even surprised him. He found a big black bow. Though there were no arrows with it, its power was still terrifying. God-killing bow. Seeing it, Jian Wushuang felt surprised and happy. This god-killing bow was a magic weapon, a second-grade magic weapon. Different from other magic weapons, the god-killing bow could gather a large amount of killing power in a matter of seconds. Nice. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, Mo Yun's interspatial ring really had something good. But it still took time to gather power. That's why he didn't use it when he fought with Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang was too fast, so he didn't have enough time. Now, it belonged to Jian Wushuang. The demonic grenades God-killing bow, and my other means should give me a slim chance of survival. Jian Wushuang believed he had a chance. The fight was unavoidable as long as the blood soul mark stayed on him. His cloned body was destroyed, and the new one hadn't formed yet. Therefore, he couldn't secretly replace himself with a clone. There was also no one helping him. He could only rely on himself. On top of the giant mountain, Jian Wushuang was sitting cross-legged. Then he closed his eyes slowly. His breath became steady and his mind calmed down. Half a day quickly passed. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, which were full of determination. Everything is ready. Both my strength and mind are in a perfect state. I have exhausted all my means and prepared 5 killing moves. Holy Emperor Palace, no matter who you send, with the help of these 5 killing moves, I will be capable of fighting with them head-on. Rumble! A devastating aura rose and surged, causing the whole area to tremble. In the long mountain range, Jian Wushuang wasn't the only one present. There were many experts hiding in the surrounding areas, waiting quietly. News had spread since the battle in Ice Nether Valley a few days ago, and Jian Wushuang was at the eye of the storm because of the blood soul mark. Everyone knew that Holy Emperor Palace wouldn't let him off. They would definitely send one of their holy masters to kill him, so there would definitely be a fierce fight. Therefore, many of them were waiting, filled with expectations. They wanted to see whether Jian Wushuang, a rare genius, would once again be able to create a miracle during this life and death crisis. They had been following and watching him since he left Ice Nether Valley. Now, with Jian Wushuang at the top of Skyward Mountain, it was obvious that others would be here too. The surrounding area was abuzz with discussion. It seems he is going to make his stand here. Because of the blood soul mark, there is no choice but to fight them to the death. If they want to make sure he has no chance to survive, Holy Emperor Palace will have to send out a holy master to deal with him. Which one will come? Many experts were standing in the surrounding area, waiting quietly. Then, one day later, a slender elder in a black robe slowly appeared from off in the distance. He walked slowly, but with each step, he seemed to move 1,000 feet. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived at the center of the mountain range. Floating in front of the Skyward Mountain, he looked down at Jian Wushuang. As soon as the slender elder appeared, the experts in the surrounded turned to face him. They were all dumbfounded. He is Second Holy Master. Chapter 346, 5 Killing Moves, Part 1. Chapter 346, 5 Killing Moves, Part 1. Second Holy Master. He came here. I thought Holy Emperor Palace would send 4th Holy Master or 3rd Holy Master to handle this. I didn't expect that 2nd Holy Master would turn up. Many experts were stunned. 2nd Holy Master, Bo Shi. The wine master's expression changed when he saw the slender black-robed elder. It's over. Wine master sighed while shaking his head. He had fought with 4th Holy Master and 2nd Holy Master, so he knew 2nd Holy Master was very powerful. He thought if 4th Holy Master came, Jian Wushuang would have an opportunity to fight back against him. If 3rd Holy Master showed up, Jian Wushuang might have a chance to survive. But now it was 2nd Holy Master. He will die, Wine Master thought. 2nd Holy Master is personally fighting him. Jian Wushuang is doomed. The other experts also shared this thought. While still at the peak of Skyward Mountain, Jian Wushuang opened his eyes, raised his head, and stared at the slender black-robed elder. The elder peacefully stood above the mountain, without emanating an aura. However, Jian Wushuang felt a great pressure. There are 4 holy masters in Holy Emperor Palace. I wonder who you are, Jian Wushuang said indifferently. I'm Second Holy Master, Bo Shi, the slender, black-robed elder replied. Second Holy Master? Jian Wushuang's face changed slightly. Since you know who I am, you should be clear about your ending. Now, I will give you an opportunity. You can kill yourself. Second Holy Master stood there with a cold, arrogant look. He was definitely qualified to look down on Jian Wushuang. Kill myself. Jian Wushuang smiled and said, In this world, no one can make me kill myself. Are you qualified? Since you're so stubborn, I won't show any mercy, Second Holy Master said coldly. Then he took a step forwards. In that instant, his stride spanned hundreds of feet while radiating invisible waves. Jian Wushuang felt a great power begin to suppress him from all directions. He was a bit surprised. Fight! Jian Wushuang suddenly snarled. As his thunderous voice reverberated, a roaring battle intent suddenly spread out. A terrifying power, which could devour everything, burst forth. Soul-devouring secret skill. Normally, Jian Wushuang would wait, only displaying this skill when he had no choice. But this time, Jian Wushuang performed it without any hesitation. The terrifying power devoured everything in the surroundings. A large amount of natural power flowed into his body, which made his aura soar. Very interesting tactic. Second Holy Master quietly stood there and did not try to block it. The battle intent in Jian Wushuang's eyes was powerful. Azura's secret skill, Road to the Underworld. Hua, a vast blood river, directly flowed out. Instantly, it spread over a radius of more than 1,000 meters and covered the whole area. Second Holy Master was stuck in it. Then, Jian Wushuang activated Slaughter Domain and Sword Sea. The three skills combined and released their strength. Immediately, the blood river tumbled and turbulent water rushed towards Second Holy Master. Second Holy Master was in the center of the blood river, like a boat swaying in the endless sea. The triple kill sword appeared in Jian Wushuang's hands. The power of the magic weapon erupted. A phantom giant suddenly appeared behind Jian Wushuang. The phantom giant was larger than before. As Jian Wushuang wielded the triple kill sword, the towering phantom giant slowly swung the long sword. Blood emptying technique. The first move. Shua. The moment the huge blood-red sword light directly lashed out, the heaven and earth seemed to be split in two. Jian Wushuang had finished his first killing move. Road to the Underworld, Slaughter Domain, Sword Sea, the first move of blood emptying technique, and the outburst of the triple kill sword. The power of Blood River is great. You must have depended on this Blood River to kill our 7 Saint Realm experts. Second Holy Master said indifferently. He watched the huge stroke slash toward him, then casually waved his hand. Then a forlorn, shrill howl rang out. The huge blood-red sword light seemed to be hampered as it suddenly stopped and then shattered completely. Second Holy Master casually broke the first killing move. Jian Wushuang remained composed. The moment the sword light was smashed, a stream of great blood-red power began to gather in his palm. Soon, it reached its limit and exuded a soaring blood-red light. The second move of Azura's secret skill, Bridge of Helplessness. As Jian Wushuang let out a cry, the surrounding air seemed to suddenly tremble. On the edge of the blood river, a towering long blood-red bridge suddenly appeared and extended to the end of the river at an amazing speed. Jian Wushuang stood on the bridge and walked forward. A large amount of blood-red energy gathered around his body, as if he wore a blood-red armor. His momentum improved to a new level. When it reached its peak, the phantom giant waved its muscular arms and struck a blow. This stroke was much more powerful than the previous one. After Bridge of Helplessness made his momentum reach the peak, Jian Wushuang displayed the second move of the blood-emptying technique, which was his second killing move. Ridiculous, Second Holy Master sneered. A terrifying power instantly gathered in his palm. Then he clenched his fist and threw a punch. The punch was like a huge meteor as it violently collided with the sword shadow. Then the powerful sword shadow was smashed again. At this moment, Jian Wushuang was surrounded by a force of gale and thunderbolt. His body changed into lightning, easily flashing through the air to appear at Second Holy Master's side. Then he threw 2 golden purple light beads at the elder. The 2 golden purple light beads landed, less than 2 meters away from Second Holy Master. Demonic grenade. Second Holy Master's expression eventually changed. Explosion! Jian Wushuang shouted. The 2 demonic grenades directly exploded. Chapter 347, 5 Killing Moves, Part 2. Chapter 347, 5 Killing Moves, Part 2. Boom, boom. Following the 2 loud booms, 2 violent windstorms formed in the sky. The demonic grenade was given to him by Wine Master. He said that, if used properly, a demonic grenade could even endanger a top expert who has reached the pinnacle. Jian Wushuang found an opportunity to throw 2 demonic grenades at Second Holy Master, which was his 3rd killing move. Second Holy Master was overwhelmed by the terrifying power of the 2 demonic grenades. He was stuck in the 2 windstorms for a long time before he finally smashed the windstorms with his great power and reappeared before everyone's eyes. At this moment, Second Holy Master looked embarrassed. His black robe had become ragged because of the explosion. However, he was not injured and his aura had not weakened. Boy, that was a nice skill. Anything else? Second Holy Master stood in the air and coldly looked toward Jian Wushuang. However, in the next moment, he was shocked. He saw Jian Wushuang drawing a huge bow. A stream of terrifying strength gathered on the bow, merging to form a golden arrow. He was the target. God-killing bow. Second Holy Master was startled. When the power of the golden arrow reached the limit, Jian Wushuang relaxed his finger. Swish! The golden arrow shot forward, changing into a flash of golden light. Instantly, it pierced the space between them with its golden tail, like a comet. He obtained the God-killing bow from Mo Yun's interspatial ring. As a second-grade magic weapon, it was really different from an ordinary weapon. Once it was used, the terrifying power of the golden arrow would rush forward. With the help of Road to the Underworld and Bridge of Helplessness, Jian Wushuang unleashed the God-killing bow and shot the golden arrow. The power was enough to threaten an expert at the pinnacle. The speed of the arrow was so fast that Second Holy Master was not able to dodge it. He could only try his best to block it. This was Jian Wushuang's 4th killing move. It was set up in conjunction with the 3rd killing move because the time needed to prepare the God-killing bow was provided by the explosion of the 2 demonic grenades. Right as Second Holy Master disentangled him from the explosion, the God-killing bow had just finished the preparations to attack, without leaving Second Holy Master a chance to breathe. The killing moves arrived in quick succession. The golden arrow instantly appeared in front of Second Holy Master, moving directly toward his neck. Second Holy Master snorted while immediately slapping it with his hand. Chi, the golden arrow, was powerful. Its terrifying power allowed it to pierce through Second Holy Master's palm and continue flying toward his throat. Second Holy Master widened his eyes. Then streams of great spiritual power gushed out and formed a shield around his body. The golden arrow collided with the shield of spiritual power. The very moment it managed to pierce the shield, the power of the arrow disappeared. How dangerous! Second Holy Master was frightened. The golden arrow was only 5 millimeters away from striking his neck after breaking through the shield. Boy, it seems that I underestimated you. Second Holy Master coldly looked toward Jian Wushuang, with a surge of killing intent flashing in his eyes. It had been a long time since he had such a fright. Now it was caused by a young expert in the Yang Void realm. Not only is he still alive, he was not even injured by my 4 killing moves. Now, everything depends on this last move. Jian Wushuang's eyes became slightly red as killing intent began gushing out. Then he took out a faint yellow elixir and ate it. Yin-Yang Dark Dragon Elixir. It could greatly increase his strength for a short period of time. In an instant, he felt the blood racing through his veins, and his potential was completely activated. His strength became at least double. Then Jian Wushuang suddenly patted his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood, then quickly waved his hand to catch it. This action was repeated several times, leaving a dozen palm prints on his chest. Azura's secret skill, the third move, 18 levels of hell. Jian Wushuang let out a snarl. His face was distorted, and his veins stood out on his forehead as if his veins would burst. Previously, Jian Wushuang was not able to perform 18 levels of hell because he did not have enough spiritual power and strength. However, now, after performing the soul-devouring secret skill, eating the Yin-Yang Dark Dragon Elixir, and even drawing his own blood, he could barely display this move. Boom! The blood river madly tumbled and roared. It originally covered 1,000 meters, but now it extended thousands of meters at an amazing speed until it resembled the road to the underworld. The bridge of helplessness that spanned the blood river constantly stretched while becoming more enormous and towering. In the middle of the blood river, a piece of blood cloud swirled, forming a huge vortex. Then, a huge blood-red pavilion slowly descended. It had 18 floors, with ghost shadows visible on each floor, and their screams and roars could be heard. Buzz! The moment the pavilion landed on the blood river, invisible waves spread out. Time seemed to stop for a moment. Second Holy Master stood in the blood river, with a hint of shock in his eyes, watching the ghosts crazily rushing toward him as he fell into a panic. He desperately bit his lips and barely managed to keep a clear mind. At this moment, another elixir appeared in Jian Wushuang's hand. It was the Spirit Recovering Elixir. Chapter 348, 5 Killing Moves, Part 3. Chapter 348, 5 Killing Moves, Part 3. Performing the 4 killing moves, especially the 18 levels of hell, almost consumed all his spiritual power. The Spirit Recovering Elixir would help him recover some. It began working as soon as he ate it. The size of the giant behind him increased greatly, becoming hundreds of feet tall, and the power of its sword also soared. The moment Jian Wushuang raised the triple kill sword above his head, the towering phantom giant held up the long sword as well. Blood-emptying technique, the third move. Jian Wushuang shouted, with a hint of madness flashing in his eyes. Instantly, a huge blood-red sword light swept out. It was powerful. The moment the stroke lashed out, the whole area became dead still. The Yin-Yang Dark Dragon Elixir, 18 levels of hell, and the third move of the blood-emptying technique made up his strongest move. This was his 5th killing move. The blood river was tumbling and roaring. Second Holy Master, who was stuck inside it, felt as if his consciousness was being devoured by the influence of 18 levels of hell. 18 levels of hell was completely different from Road to the Underworld and Bridge of Helplessness. It was a special skill that suppressed consciousness. Even Second Holy Master could barely keep conscious at this moment. When the blood-red sword light dashed toward him. Second Holy Master could not perform some of his best moves to parry it. He could only wave his hand to throw out a punch. In the blink of an eye, bang. A loud boom was heard, causing invisible waves to spread out. Then lots of plants in the mountains were crushed into dust. Surprised, Second Holy Master spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a shooting star, he fell down at an amazing speed. Boom! Second Holy Master crashed into a giant mountain, thousands of feet away from their battlefield, causing the mountain to break. The elder passed through the mountain and continued to retreat. Boom! Boom! Second Holy Master went through 2 giant mountains in succession, leaving a hole in each mountain. Upon colliding with the third one, he barely managed to come to a stop, but found himself embedded in the mountain. The whole area became quiet. In the sky, the roaring blood river gradually dissipated, as did Bridge of Helplessness and the blood-red pavilion. Jian Wushuang stood above the area with a pale complexion, clutching his chest and staring in the Second Holy Master's direction. A large number of onlookers, including many experts of the Saint Realm, could not help sucking in a breath of cold air. Then they all looked at Jian Wushuang in unprecedented terror. They originally thought that since Second Holy Master dealt with him personally, he would be able to kill him without a doubt. But what they saw was contrary to their expectations. Jian Wushuang had taken the initiative in this fight. 5 killing moves. He launched 5 killing moves in succession, each move stronger than the previous one. He did not even give his opponent an opportunity to breathe. Especially the last killing move. It was so powerful that many top experts were terrified from the bottom of their heart. Even the wine master was shocked when he watched Jian Wushuang perform that last move. He knew that if he had been targeted by that last attack, he would. All the onlookers were petrified. Now they were worried about Second Holy Master instead. Is Second Holy Master dead? All the onlookers looked toward where Second Holy Master had landed with shock and curiosity. Broken stones fell as a cloud of smoke and dust covered the hole, so they could not see the scene inside, making it unclear whether Second Holy Master was dead or not. Suddenly, swoosh, lots of broken stones fell from the hole. Then a black-robed person walked out and reappeared above the area. The wine master's face fell. He shook his head, sighed, and said, "Second Holy Master is Second Holy Master." The wine master thought that if Fourth Holy Master or Third Holy Master had been attacked with the 5 killing moves, they would have died. Second Holy Master was more powerful indeed. Alive. Second Holy Master is still alive. I knew he would not die with just this. Lots of experts sighed as they saw Second Holy Master's appearance. Second Holy Master's aura had weakened. He looked pale, with blood around the corner of his mouth. His clothes were torn and one of his sleeves missing. He looked bad and seriously injured. But he was alive indeed. "You didn't die?" Jian Wushuang said while suspending in the air above. His face fell, and he stared at his opponent with hostility. He had used his full strength to perform those 5 killing moves. But Second Holy Master was still alive. Jian Wushuang had reached his limit and used up all his spiritual power. He could no longer fight. Now he knew that he was standing before the gate of hell. Second Holy Master darkened his face. He wiped off the blood from around his mouth and coldly looked toward Jian Wushuang. "Boy, you do possess some strength. Even I was almost killed by you. If given more time, you would be stronger than me. But it's pity you won't have such an opportunity." Then a greenish-black giant hammer appeared in his hand. Chapter 349, An Unexpected Surprise. Chapter 349, An Unexpected Surprise. "You should be proud to be killed by my magic weapon." Along with his soaring, killing intent, Second Holy Master held a giant hammer, which was filled with a violent aura. His cold voice resounded through the whole area. Many onlookers just now realized that Second Holy Master had been fighting without a weapon. Boy, let me help you on your way. Second Holy Master took a stride and appeared in front of Jian Wushuang and launched an attack with his giant hammer. Invisible waves spread out as if to suppress the whole area. Jian Wushuang looked pale and felt he was facing a deadly crisis. His eyes became crazy. Then he suddenly raised his head and let out a hysterical cry. Fight! Though he knew that his spiritual power was used up and death was waiting for him, he still lifted his hand. The triple kill sword madly trembled and roared. The towering phantom giant behind him greatly increased in size, brandishing a long sword. Jian Wushuang swung the triple kill sword forward. He used up his last bit of strength and struck a blow. Go to hell! The greenish-black giant hammer directly collided with the triple kill sword. Clang! A metallic sound came out, and invisible waves spread toward Jian Wushuang. Bang! Jian Wushuang's right hand suddenly tore, causing a mess of blood and flesh. His bones barely could be seen while his triple kill sword was cast away. The invisible waves continued to sweep over him. Jian Wushuang only felt a stream of unimaginable power lash against him. Blood was spat out and his eyes and nose began bleeding. He felt as if all of his bones had been smashed. Bang! Jian Wushuang fell down to the mountain below. A huge pit appeared on the ground, with Jian Wushuang at the bottom of it. Many spectators looked toward the pit. After quite a while, it was still quiet in the pit. Some onlookers sighed and proclaimed, "It's over." An expert of the Yang Void Realm actually managed to fight Second Holy Master to such an extent. He was amazing. It was amazing indeed. Our Nanyang continent has had many geniuses in the past, but Jian Wushuang was peerless. What a pity. If given more time, he would have become a legend. Now it's all over. That's the end. It's over. Many of the experts felt pity for this marvelous genius. Geniuses always needed time to grow. If they died before they matured, they could not become a legend. In the pit, Jian Wushuang was still able to open his eyes. Even though blood was flowing from his mouth, his bones were almost broken, and his aura was disappearing, he still had a hint of consciousness. Am I going to die? Jian Wushuang murmured. His voice sounded quite feeble. Holy Emperor Palace, I refuse to die. I haven't delivered on the promise with my father. I haven't reached the pinnacle as a warrior. My parents, brothers, and relatives. There are too many things I haven't done. I won't accept it. He slowly closed his eyes, then suddenly reopened them. A hint of shock flashed in his eyes. That is, Jian Wushuang regained his consciousness. He saw a bizarre gray light in his belly. The gray light grew brighter and brighter, gradually gathering something. It was a gray stone bead, which was emitting a faint light. The gray stone bead. Jian Wushuang was greatly taken aback. It had been in his body for 16 years. Heavenly creation skill and soul-devouring secret skill both came from it. The gray stone bead could be considered the key point in changing his fate. Without the gray stone bead and heavenly creation skill, he might have achieved a lot, but he could not improve his strength to such an extent in a short period of time. The gray stone bead was mysterious and inconceivable. Jian Wushuang did not know when the gray stone bead appeared in his body. After the gray stone bead absorbed the spiritual power to its limit, Jian Wushuang originally thought it had completely disappeared. He had never perceived its existence during these few years. However, now, when he was dying, the mysterious gray stone bead emerged once again. It began to spin, producing a thick gray fog. It was ground until it was the size of an infant's thumb before the bead finally stopped. The thick gray fog madly gathered and condensed into a gray water drop. The moment the gray water drop finished forming, it immediately merged with his body. Jian Wushuang felt a stream of great and refreshing power flow through his body. In an instant, his injured bones, muscles, and organs started to recover at an amazing speed. It was too fast. In his sea of consciousness, a tough sword soul was quietly suspended there. The sword soul was so strong. Though Jian Wushuang was just at death's door, it still remained intact. Under the influence of the gray water drop, the sword soul began to shake violently. Sword essence rolled, while his sword soul greatly expanded. Then the sword soul split. Once his sea of consciousness calmed down, the sword soul had been divided into two double sword souls. Chapter 350. The gray water drop transforms. Chapter 350. The gray water drop transforms. It was silent. All the spectators felt pity for Jian Wushuang. Second Holy Master was suspended in the air, coldly staring at the huge pit. It had been quite a while since Jian Wushuang had fallen, so everyone thought he must have died. Finally, I killed him? Second Holy Master murmured. He looked at himself and thought, if the other three masters see my current appearance, they would think I had a tough fight with the boy and laugh at me. He shook his head and looked toward where the triple kill sword landed. I heard his sword is a first-grade magic weapon. Second Holy Masters, I lit up. Then he went to claim the sword. But right at this moment, buzz, a surge of invisible energy suddenly appeared. Second Holy Master stopped and looked at the pit again. Many spectators above the nearby space also looked toward it. Boom! The whole area seemed to shake for an instant. Then the ground started to violently vibrate as if it was roaring. In the huge pit, lots of stones began floating up. Then a figure slowly flew out. Jian Wushuang. Everybody stared at him in shock. His clothes were dyed red by blood. His arms were a mess of blood and flesh, with even his bones being slightly visible. His eyes were closed, and his black hair fluttered. A stream of aura spread out and began growing stronger and stronger. As he moved to stand above the area, rumble! It sounded like the whole world cracked. A great amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy madly surged toward Jian Wushuang from all directions. The spiritual power whistled through the area, surrounding Jian Wushuang in an instant and creating a great spiritual storm that radiated out 100 meters. Jesus! That's heaven and earth spiritual energy. Lots of experts could not help but widen his eyes. The spiritual storm was quite grand. Jian Wushuang immersed himself in it. A large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy was devoured by him. Owing to it, his aura became stronger and stronger. Previously, his aura had withered to a point where it might completely disappear, but now it had reached a new level, much stronger than before. The aura kept soaring. Swish! The triple kill sword trembled and then flew toward its owner, returning to Jian Wushuang's grasp again. His eyes were still closed, but at this moment, the two sword souls were radiating a brilliant light within his sea of consciousness. Rumble! Two spectral images suddenly appeared behind his back. The two spectral images looked the same as Jian Wushuang, but much bigger than him. Now they kept the same posture as their owner, with the long sword in their hands and their eyes closed. Sword soul phantoms. Two sword souls created two sword soul phantoms. Their sword essence was powerful. The boy is still alive. Second Holy Master's face fell. Then a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! With one stride, Second Holy Master appeared before his opponent. A surge of power gathered in his hand, and he swung his giant hammer, which emitted an enormous energy. The moment it smashed forward, an explosive power swept out. Go to hell! Second Holy Master's face was distorted. He did not know what his opponent was doing. However, he was frightened, so he would not give the boy any opportunities. This attack was stronger than the previous one. Jian Wushuang still had his eyes closed and did not seem to notice, but his two sword soul phantoms opened their eyes, shooting out two streaks of light. Like a sword strike, the light swept out, causing two huge sword scars to appear in the sky and cracks to form in the ground. At this moment, the triple kill sword directly lashed out. A casual stroke. It contained no sword skills or tricks. This simple stroke collided with the giant hammer. Pung! With a loud boom, Second Holy Master was blasted backwards, as if he had been hit by a bomb. Boom! Boom! His body flew across the sky, humming violently. After regaining his balance, Second Holy Master gasped while in shock. All the spectators were petrified. He had repelled Second Holy Master with a casual strike. Jian Wushuang still kept the same posture, as if he had not launched an attack. The great spiritual storm remained there, and he was crazily devouring the heaven and earth spiritual energy as if he would never be full. As his aura soared, his face became ruddy. He had almost recovered, and his bloody arms seemed intact. His bones, muscles, and even the tiny parts of his body were changing under the influence of the gray Waterdrop. Improve. Transform. With every breath, his body was being strengthened as much as dozens of times. His aura became increasingly stronger. What on earth happened? He was dying, but now he made a breakthrough at the last moment. Breakthrough. All of them thought of this possibility. After all, Jian Wushuang was at the peak of the Yang Void realm. He was a peerless genius, so he might be able to make a breakthrough. Chapter 351, Venerable Master. Chapter 351, Venerable Master. Breakthrough. Jian Wushuang was making a breakthrough indeed. When the gray Waterdrop merged with his body, he started making a breakthrough. He was different from ordinary warriors. Ordinary warriors followed this cultivating path, the 7 steps of the spirit path, spiritual sea realm, primordial gold core realm, yin-yang void realm, and divine transcendence. However, Jian Wushuang had cultivated the heavenly creation skill, so he followed a different path, the 9 heavens of the divine path, ultimate spiritual sea, supreme gold core realm, yin and yang breaking, Venerable Master, and flying to the 9th heaven. Ordinary warriors would reach divine transcendence after breaking through the peak of the Yang Void realm. Jian Wushuang was an inverse cultivator, so he would reach Venerable Master after yin and yang breaking. The difference between a Venerable Master and warriors of divine transcendence was their body. The former had a more powerful body. Jian Wushuang's body was currently transforming. With every passing second, it became stronger and tougher. I cannot believe it. Second Holy Master's thin face was distorted, with a flicker of coldness in his eyes. Then a stream of red power swept out. His giant hammer was covered by red flames, as if it were burning. Second Holy Master suddenly stamped on the air. The space around him shook, emitting a red wave. Then, Second Holy Master appeared in front of his opponent once again. Boom! The greenish-black giant hammer smashed toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang still did not react, but his 2 sword soul phantoms emanated a soaring, killing intent, and their sword essence was powerful enough to destroy the mountain and river and make everything tremble. The triple kill sword slashed out again, while the sword soul phantoms swung their swords as well. The moment the sword light appeared, the whole area completely turned dark. The streak of sword light was like the king in this world of darkness. With a hint of craziness in his eyes, Second Holy Master suddenly launched a scarlet thunderbolt before his stroke collided with the sword light. The scarlet thunderbolt moved so quickly that Jian Wushuang did not seem to have time to parry it. Boom! The scarlet thunderbolt lashed his chest. His clothes split, but only a bloody mark was left on his chest. What? Second Holy Master widened his eyes. How is that possible? All the spectators were stunned. Second Holy Master's strongest move, Scarlet Lightning, could easily smash an expert of the Saint Realm, but just now it only scratched Jian Wushuang's skin. The brilliant sword light continued flying forward and crashed against the giant hammer. Pung! Even though the giant hammer was a second-grade magic weapon, it was instantly split in half. Then the sword light continued moving toward Second Holy Master. The collision with giant hammer caused the sword light to slightly change its trajectory. Chi! The sword light passed through Second Holy Master's thighs. His legs were instantly cut off, and then they slowly fell down. His Second Holy Master sucked in a breath of cold air and felt scalp tingle as if his head was about to explode. All the spectators completely froze in shock. 2 successive strokes. The first stroke only repelled Second Holy Master. However, the second stroke was so powerful that it broke Second Holy Master's magic weapon and cut off his legs. More importantly, Jian Wushuang was still in the process of transforming. The spiritual storm was still there, his aura still soared, and his body was constantly being strengthened. Monster, this boy is a monster. Second Holy Master gritted his teeth. Despite the pain of his severed legs, he rushed in the opposite direction under the gaze of the spectators. He was escaping. One of the 4 Holy Masters, Second Holy Master, was running away. All the spectators were shocked, but they immediately understood. Jian Wushuang's battle strength was terrifying. He was much stronger than Second Holy Master. Furthermore, his strength was still improving greatly, so Second Holy Master could not kill Jian Wushuang at all. If he still stayed here, he would die after Jian Wushuang finished his breakthrough. Second Holy Master left. Jian Wushuang did not chase him. His transformation continued. Eventually, as Jian Wushuang absorbed the last hint of heaven and earth spiritual energy, the whole area became quiet. He gradually withdrew his aura. Jian Wushuang quietly stood above the void, with 2 sword soul phantoms behind him. No aura emanated from his body. Now he looked like an ordinary man. No one would be able to perceive his existence if they closed their eyes. Divine transcendence. As for Jian Wushuang, it was Venerable Master. He made it. This is Venerable Master. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and looked serene. By now, he had completely recovered. He had reached the peak. When the gray stone bead emerged again and led him to make a breakthrough. Far away from the battlefield, in a secluded canyon in the Tang Dynasty, there was a hidden cave mansion. A middle-aged man was sitting by a long, narrow table while boiling tea in the mansion. The moment the gray stone bead emerged in Jian Wushuang's body, the man seemed to perceive it and immediately stood up. The next moment, his disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already arrived at the peak of a mountain in the center of the canyon. He was looking in the direction of the battlefield. Regardless of the remoteness, the middle-aged man looked out as if he was able to see everything clearly. He narrowed his deep eyes and mumbled without any emotion. Heavenly Creation Skill. Chapter 352, Jian Wushuang, the Supreme Existence. Chapter 352, Jian Wushuang, the Supreme Existence. Above the void, near the skyward mountain, Jian Wushuang clenched his fists while feeling the booming power within him. Now he had reached Venerable Master and had the strongest body. His body became extremely tough. His bones, organs, muscles, and even skin were stronger than an ordinary warrior's. It was known as iron bones, and his current body was not weaker than a third-grade magic weapon. Jian Wushuang had such a marvelous body, which was the big difference between a divine transcendence expert and him. Second Holy Master's strongest move, Scarlet Thunderbolt, just slightly injured him because his body was too strong. His strong body led to his great strength. With just his body, Jian Wushuang was able to fight against an ordinary expert of the Saint Realm. With the help of Heavenly Creation Skill, his strength exploded, becoming 12 times stronger than an expert of the Saint Realm. Besides that, he also made a breakthrough in cultivation and sword soul. Double sword souls. Jian Wushuang did not know that he could possess 2 sword souls. The double sword souls both created a sword soul phantom. The sword soul had been in his sea of consciousness, helping him with both enlightenment of essence and origin of sword principle. However, when the sword soul phantoms appeared, Jian Wushuang found each movement he displayed was reinforced by the strength of sword soul, so its power improved greatly. Now, even his casual stroke was extremely terrifying. Jian Wushuang cut off Second Holy Master's legs with 1 stroke because of the strength of sword soul. If Second Holy Master had not escaped, Jian Wushuang could have killed him after the breakthrough. Venerable Master and double sword souls, I'm currently much stronger than before. It's all because of the gray stone bead. Jian Wushuang touched his lower abdomen and felt like the gray stone bead had seemingly disappeared again. But he knew that it was only hidden in his body, and he just could not sense it. He also knew that without the gray stone bead, he would have died. The gray stone bead saved me once, but it might not be able to help me a second time. The way of cultivating is fraught with peril. From now on, I should be more careful. I won't let such a situation happen again. Jian Wushuang was roaring in his heart. He really had almost died in that fight. Though he had been on the edge of the precipice several times, he always survived by using some unorthodox tactics. But this time, he had survived by luck. Swordsman, my little friend. A gentle voice was heard as Wine Master slowly walked over. Senior Wine Master, said Jian Wushuang, congratulations on your breakthrough. Wine Master smiled and said, Second Holy Master is one of the supreme experts in Nanyang continent, but you cut off his legs with 1 stroke. Besides the mysterious monarch of the Tang dynasty, you might be the only one who could do that. Wine Master changed his attitude towards Jian Wushuang. He now called Jian Wushuang little friend instead of boy. If he fought with Second Holy Master, Wine Master would run away, but Jian Wushuang easily cut off Second Holy Master's legs. After that, Wine Master knew that the young man's strength was far superior to his. Therefore, he could not call the young man boy anymore. I was just lucky, Jian Wushuang replied with a faint smile. He was not proud of himself, as he was clear that luck had helped him out. Luck is a part of your strength. Wine Master smiled and said, From now on, you are the strongest expert in Nanyang continent. Even if you fought First Holy Master from Holy Emperor Palace, you would defeat him. That is to say, Holy Emperor Palace is no longer a threat to you. Holy Emperor Palace. A hint of coldness flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Holy Emperor Palace has tried to kill me. I have a grudge against them. That is irreconcilable. Now that my strength improved greatly, I need to destroy this enemy. But first, I have to go somewhere. Senior Wine Master. Jian Wushuang looked toward Wine Master and said, I have to go somewhere. Please tell my brothers after they wake up. Okay. The Wine Master nodded. See you. Jian Wushuang clasped his hands and left. He changed into a lightning and disappeared into the sky. The Wine Master sighed in private while watching his back. I remember the first time I met him. He was at the primordial gold core level, yet it only took him this long to completely surpass my strength. Too fast. In the vast Nanyang continent, there have been countless marvelous geniuses and experts, but none of them can hold a candle to him. He will become a legend in the Nanyang continent. The other experts who witnessed the fight were petrified. He cut off Second Holy Master's legs with one stroke. Second Holy Master ran away without even hesitating. He's reached divine transcendence. He was so powerful after his breakthrough. I'm afraid that, except for the mysterious monarch of the Tang dynasty, no one will be his match. From now on, he has become a supreme existence. Jian Wushuang, with a sword in hand, he is invincible. Their eyes sparkled. They witnessed a star rise in the Nanyang continent. Jian Wushuang would be a legend in the Nanyang continent. Chapter 353, Master Jiu Xiu. Chapter 353, Master Jiu Xiu. Inside the Holy Emperor Palace. The Palace Master and many elders of Holy Emperor Palace were waiting quietly in a fine loft, waiting for Second Holy Master's triumphant return. Second Holy Master is handling it personally, so Jian Wushuang will die even if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. They were all confident in Second Holy Master. Second Holy Master reached the pinnacle hundreds of years ago. He was strong enough to be ranked in the top 5 on the Nanyang continent. To kill someone at the peak of the Yang Void Realm is as easy as winking. Even if it was Wine Master, he couldn't survive Second Holy Master's attack. It's been quite a while now, so Second Holy Master should be back soon. The Holy Emperor Palace's master said, casually. At this moment, they noticed a flowing light rushing toward them. He's back. It's Second Holy Master. Their faces broke into smiles. However, once the flowing light approached, and they clearly saw his current state, their smiles froze. Second Holy Master looked pale. His clothing was torn like an old rag, and he was covered in blood. But the most notable issue was his legs were cut off. What happened? They were all astonished. They thought no one but the mysterious monarch of Tang dynasty on the Nanyang continent could injure him so heavily. Did he fall into a trap? Could he have been surrounded by the alchemy school or some other experts? They thought, walking towards him. Second Holy Master, what Palace Master was about to ask. Shut up. Second Holy Master shouted and glanced at them with cold eyes. He was too impatient and didn't want to waste any more words. Instead, he went directly to the giant mountain where the other 3 Holy Masters were. The Palace Master and the elders of Holy Emperor Palace looked at each other in confusion. None of them understood what just happened. Soon, in an abode of the giant mountain, Second Holy Master met with the other 3 Holy Masters. They were shocked when they saw Second Holy Master. Second brother, what happened? A silver-haired elder asked in a deep voice. He was the strongest elder in Holy Emperor Palace, First Holy Master, who was also the key stand in Holy Emperor Palace. Second Holy Master was strong enough to be ranked in the top 5 on the Nanyang continent, but First Holy Master was recognized as the strongest, excluding the monarch of Tang dynasty. Besides that, he was much stronger than the alchemy school's expert, who was ranked third. He was also very old. We are in trouble. Second Holy Master was in a surly mood as he explained what he had experienced. After hearing the story, they all frowned. Jian Wushuang made a breakthrough. Again, First Holy Master asked. Yes. Second Holy Master nodded. Not only has his strength improved a lot, he split my magic weapon and cutting off my legs with only one sword move. On top of that, his body became so hard that my scarlet thunderbolt only left a scratch on him. It's incredible. Big brother, I was much more overwhelmed while facing him than you. If it was a 1-to-1 fight, I'm afraid you wouldn't be his opponent either. Hearing that, First Holy Master's face fell. They had cultivated together for years, so they clearly understood each other's strength. He knew, though he was stronger than Second Holy Master, it was impossible for him to split his magic weapon and cut off his legs with only one sword move. But Jian Wushuang did it. Even more terrifying than that, though, was the strength of his body. He believed what Second Holy Master had said. Jian Wushuang was stronger than him. The worst part is his age. Second Holy Master gnashed his teeth and said he is only 22 years old. If he is given more time, I can't imagine what will happen. His words silenced all three of them. It was true. The biggest threat was his age. He was young, but he improved so quickly. Jian Wushuang. First Holy Master narrowed his eyes and said, I never expected he would be harder to deal with than his father. Let's go to see Master Jiu Xiu. Second Holy Master, and the other two were surprised. Then they nodded heavily. They quickly arrived at the top of Giant Mountain. Then they stopped at an exquisite loft where the door was closed. Master Jiu Xiu. They saluted at the door. What's wrong? A cold voice sounded. Judging from the voice, it was a young man. There is a problem. First, Holy Master immediately explained everything to him. Jian Wushuang, a son from the bloodline of the sword ancestor. The young man was in high spirits as he continued. He killed 7 Saint Realm experts easily even before his breakthrough, then defeated a pinnacle Saint Realm expert after his breakthrough. Good. Tell me all the details of the fight. Yes. Second Holy Master nodded. Then he recounted everything to him with respect. He told him every detail, from Jian Wushuang's 5 killing moves to his near-death, then his breakthrough and his explosive strength. However, he was interrupted in the middle. You said 2 spectral images appeared behind him when he brandished his sword, didn't you? The young man in the loft interrupted him. Yes. Second Holy Master nodded. Ha ha. He laughed. Sword Soul Phantom. He had 2 Sword Soul Phantoms, double Sword Souls. This son of the Sword Ancestor bloodline is really great. Jian Wushuang, the son of Jian Nantian. He gathered Sword Souls too, but it seems he is even more talented than his father. I really want his 2 Sword Souls. Where is Jian Wushuang now? I don't know. Second, Holy Master shook his head. It was true. Previously, he was able to track Jian Wushuang because of the blood soul mark. However, the blood soul mark disappeared after he made his breakthrough. With that, he couldn't track Jian Wushuang anymore. You don't know? His voice was sullen, but then his voice changed. Never mind. Even if we don't look for him, he will come looking for us soon enough. Okay, I understand. You may leave now. Yes, Your Highness. The 4 Holy Masters left. In the loft, the young man murmured to himself, Jian Wushuang, double Sword Souls, interesting. Chapter 354, Sword Scar. Chapter 354, Sword Scar. News of the outstanding fight between Jian Wushuang and Second Holy Master raged throughout the whole Nanyang continent. Everyone had heard the story of Jian Wushuang's rise. However, the hero had not returned to Tianzong dynasty after he defeated Second Holy Master. Instead, he went to the abyss in the innumerable huge mountains near Tianzong dynasty. At the abyss in the innumerable huge mountains, which was known as the Forbidden Area. Few went there, so they didn't know that there was a secret hidden there. Jian Wushuang jumped directly towards the bottom of the abyss. After arriving at the ancestors' land again, Jian Wushuang immediately saw Jinling and Mushan. Jian Wushuang, here you are again. Jinling looked at Jian Wushuang coldly. Then her expression changed as she said, "Divine transcendence." She noticed his tranquil breath, which only a Saint Realm expert could have. How long has it been? Both Jinling and Mushan were shocked. It had been less than 2 years since he left ancestors' land last time. At that time, Jian Wushuang had just reached the peak of the Yin Void realm with the help of the ancestors' land. However, now he had reached divine transcendence. What a terrifying level of improvement. I came here to take the second trial of the ancestors' land, Jian Wushuang said openly. Jinling took a deep look at Jian Wushuang, nodded, then said, "Follow me." She led Jian Wushuang to a small one-story loft. "The second trial is inside. Go in," Jinling said. Jian Wushuang stepped inside without a second thought. It was an open space with a stone tablet and a statue standing at the center. Jian Wushuang once saw a similar stone tablet in the sword tomb, and there was also a sword scar on it. The sword scar was smooth and flat. Seeing the sword scar, Jian Wushuang felt how extraordinary it was. The statue seemed ordinary and lifeless, but Jian Wushuang knew it was a powerful puppet fighter. Suddenly, Jinling's voice reverberated. "Jian Wushuang, have you seen the sword scar on the stone tablet? It was left by Sword Ancestor, and it contains a sword skill. What you need to do is master it in 1 month. 1 month. The time started counting when you stepped inside. The door has closed and will not open until you master it. There is also a puppet fighter near the stone tablet. It will wake up in a month, and if you haven't come out by the time it wakes up, you will definitely be killed." After saying that, Jinling's voice vanished from the loft. Looking at the sword scar, Jian Wushuang's eyes began glittering with excitement. "Is there a sword skill in it?" Jian Wushuang carefully looked at the sword scar with a flicker of curiosity. Such an abstruse scar. Jian Wushuang understood most of it, but he could not fully understand it for now. This is a tyrannical and mysterious sword skill. Jian Wushuang was surprised. He understood why Jinling said that he couldn't pass the second trial if he hadn't reached divine transcendence. It's because the sword skill was too hard to understand for an ordinary Yin-Yang Void realm warrior. If one forced himself to study it, they would probably go mad. Only Saint Realm experts were qualified to study it. Jian Wushuang sat down immediately and started meditating on the sword skill. Outside the loft, Jinling and Mushan stood together, side by side. 1 month is neither long nor short. Do you think he can pass it? Mushan said. Hard to say. Jinling shook his head, secretly. They knew clearly how tough the second trial was. It was much tougher than the first one. Both of them were tests for martial talent. The first trial offered guidance, while the second one could only be understood by oneself. Most importantly, it was the work of the Sword Ancestor. Who was he? He created it himself, and even though it might not be the most powerful, it was still a strong sword skill. Even many Saint Realm experts, who had good swordsmanship, couldn't fully master it after studying for decades. Jian Wushuang only had 1 month. Wait and see. He is no less talented than his father, so it's possible for him to pass, Jian said. They could do nothing for Jian Wushuang. They could only wait outside. Time passed. Quam. The door opened, and Jian Wushuang walked out slowly. Jian and Mu Shan turned to Jian Wushuang in astonishment. How it could be? It's only been 3 days. Jian and Mu Shan were shocked. 3 days. Yes, they had only waited outside for 3 days. He could leave the loft after he mastered the sword skill and passed the second trial. Only 3 days. Sorry to have kept you waiting, Jian Wushuang said with a smile, then walked over to Jian and Mu Shan. How could you? Jian stared at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. It was created by the sword ancestor. A normal Saint Realm warrior could spend their whole life trying to master it. Even though you have awakened sword soul and have a high degree of talent, it's impossible for you to master it in only 3 days. Jian Wushuang touched his nose shyly. The sword skill was abstruse, but he had smoothly mastered it in only 3 days. Maybe I should thank my sword souls. While he was busy speaking, the 2 sword souls from his sea of consciousness surged behind Jian Wushuang. Chapter 355, Double First Grade Sword Souls. Chapter 355, Double First Grade Sword Souls. 2 sword soul phantoms, each nearly 100 feet tall, rose behind Jian Wushuang, tall and straight, with majesty and a towering sword essence. They are. Both Jian and Mu Shan were struck dumb with amazement. Sword soul phantom. 2 sword soul phantoms, and so tall, double first grade sword souls. They were stunned. This explains it. That's why you only took 3 days to pass the second trial. Jian looked at Jian Wushuang with a solemn face. First grade sword soul? Jian Wushuang was surprised. Then his sword soul phantoms vanished. Are there different grades of sword soul? Jian Wushuang asked. Of course. Jian nodded solemnly and explained, sword soul, only talented experts can awaken it, and the more talented they are in sword principle, the more powerful the sword soul they awaken will be. Just like magic weapons, manuals, and elixirs, sword soul is classified into 3 grades. At the height of the sword ancestor's bloodline, only a few geniuses awakened sword souls, but most of them were 2nd grade or 3rd grade. It's rare to see a 1st grade. Not only that, very few can awaken more than 1 sword soul. Super geniuses are totally able to awaken 2 or more. At his peak, the sword ancestor commanded 7 sword emperors. They were top experts, and every one of them awakened multiple sword souls. 7 sword emperors. Jian Wushuang was astonished. The more sword soul one awakes, the more helpful it is in comprehending sword principle and origin. What's more, if a sword soul forms a spectral image, it also improves one's strength significantly. And the higher grade a sword soul is, the more powerful it is. Sword soul is classified into 3 grades. A 3rd grade spectral image is less than 30 feet high. Sword soul phantoms of the 2nd grade go up to 60 feet. However, 1st grade sword soul phantoms can be as tall as 90 feet. You have 2, and both sword soul phantoms are nearly 100 feet tall. They are definitely double 1st grade sword souls, Jian said. They are. Jian Wushuang blinked. His sword soul phantoms were tall, both reaching about 100 feet in height. If a sword soul's grade was judged by its height, he had double 1st grade sword souls. Jian paused, then she continued. A 1st grade sword soul is rare, and having double 1st grade sword souls is incredible. Most importantly, you awaken them at such a young age. It's possible for you to have a 3rd one in the future. A 3rd one? Jian Wushuang commented and smiled. He didn't know much about sword souls before, so he also did not know anything about double sword souls. But now he knew, and double sword souls was not the limit. Jian, you said that the more talented one was in sword principle, the more sword soul they would awaken. How many sword souls did the sword ancestor have? What was their grade? Jian Wushuang asked while still surprised. The sword ancestor. Jian was stunned. Then she smiled. The sword ancestor had 6 first-grade sword souls. 6 first-grade sword souls. Jian Wushuang was stunned. Then he marveled secretly. Amazing! He really was the ancestor of sword principle. Jian Wushuang thought himself great when he found out about double sword souls, but now, compared with sword ancestor, I have a long way to go. Jian Wushuang smiled, but he wasn't downhearted. After all, sword soul improved with his growth. Sword ancestor must have lived a long time to have 6 sword souls. However, Jian Wushuang had just started moving along his path. The sword ancestor's bloodline has been declining, but you and your father awakened sword soul in succession. You even awakened double first-grade sword souls, which is a miracle. And your father, he came here not long ago, Jian suddenly said. My father... Jian Wushuang looked toward her. After destroying Blood Feather Tower, he had separated with his father. After that, he had not heard any news about his father. But just now, he had heard something related to his father from Jian. It was about 1 year ago. He came here right after he had reached divine transcendence. He is also highly talented and passed the 2nd trial, though he took longer than you. Even though his first sword soul was stolen, he managed to awaken another one. And it was also a first-grade sword soul, Jian said. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang could not help smiling. His father's talent was no less than his. His father ate a reversal red scorching elixir, which suppressed his potential by a large extent. Even with that, Jian Nantian still reached divine transcendence and awakened a first-grade sword soul. Where is he now? Jian Wushuang asked. I don't know. Jian shook her head and said, after passing the trial and getting some opportunities, he left. But he left behind a letter for you. Jian took out the letter. Jian Wushuang raised her eyebrows. After taking the letter, he opened it and read it. A moment later, he finished reading. Father, have you left already? Jian Wushuang said with a smile. You left Holy Emperor Palace for me to deal with, so I need to improve as soon as possible. Jian Wushuang smashed the letter to pieces. After passing each trial in the ancestors' land, you will be given some opportunities. Jian looked over at Jian Wushuang. You have passed the 2nd trial and are now a core disciple of the sword ancestors' bloodline. Therefore, you will have more privileges and opportunities. Chapter 356, Heart-Killing. Chapter 356, Heart-Killing. Opportunities. Jian Wushuang was intrigued by these words. Each trial in Ancestors' Land was accompanied by gifts, like what he had got after passing the 1st trial. Surely he would get more after passing the 2nd trial. It is the same as the 1st trial. You will be given 3 opportunities. Jian said, Follow me. Led by Jian Jian Wushuang went to the altar of the ancestors' land again. There was a chain bridge leading to the core of the ancestors' land, and Jian Wushuang walked along it towards the center. He found himself in a vast wasteland with a towering sword mountain. On the mountainside, there were several ancient characters. Jian Wushuang couldn't read them, but he felt they were mysterious. You're a core disciple of the sword ancestors' bloodline now, so you are admitted to accessing to the strongest sword skills sword ancestor created. Heart-killing. Jian looked at Jian Wushuang. Heart-killing sword technique. The most powerful sword skill sword ancestor created. Jian Wushuang was stunned. At the height of the sword ancestor's bloodline, only the sword ancestor's personal disciples were permitted to study it. However, things are different now. A genius like you is rare among the descendants of the sword ancestor's bloodline. Therefore, you are qualified to study it, Jian said. There are 9 sword movements in total, and each character on the mountainside contains one movement. You only have one chance to see them. Keep in mind, what you need to do is to try your best to memorize as much as possible. It's up to you to remember them. Jian Wushuang nodded seriously. 9 characters in total, each one containing one sword movement. Go ahead. After saying that, Jian and Mushan stepped back. Jian Wushuang stood alone at the foot of the mountain, looking up at the characters. Suddenly, the first character began to shine. A picture appeared in front of Jian Wushuang's eyes. It was a black-clothed elder practicing a sword movement. He watched carefully and kept all the details in his mind. But it only lasted for a moment. As the first character's light disappeared, the second character began to shine. So fast, Jian Wushuang frowned secretly. As soon as the first one finished, the second one started. Jian Wushuang noticed that there was a connection between them, so if he couldn't memorize the first character, it would be difficult to understand the second one. As Jian had said, there was only one chance, and he needed to memorize as much as possible. Jian Wushuang closed his eyes and completely immersed himself in the image. One by one, they flashed through his mind, each one only being displayed once. Jian Wushuang only had one chance. Not far behind Jian Wushuang, Jian and Mushan stood, staring at him. It's the 6th movement. It seems he has memorized the first 5 movements. To memorize the 6th should be easy for him, and the 7th is possible, but the 8th will be difficult, Jian murmured. With the heart-killing sword technique, the further he goes, the more subtle the technique becomes. Therefore, it's hard to memorize all 9 movements in one attempt. During their heyday, even the sword ancestors' personal disciples could only memorize 7 at most with one glance, Mushan said, then sighed with feeling. The 9 sword movements of the heart-killing sword technique. The sword movements alone were simple, but understanding the abstruseness, that was difficult. Too complicated, too abstruse. If you didn't understand it at a glance, how could you memorize it? Because of that, it was fortunate if someone could memorize the first 7 movements in a single attempt. Jian Wushuang's father, Jian Nantian, watched them once and memorized the first 7, but he failed on the 8th. Jian Wushuang has awaked double first-grade sword souls, so he is more talented than his father. It's possible for him to memorize the 8th. Jian thought. On the side of the sword mountain, the 7th character began to shine. Though the 7th was more abstruse than the previous 6, Jian Wushuang still firmly kept it in mind. Then the 8th character. Both Jian and Mushan stared at Jian Wushuang, watching him memorize the 8th. Then the last one. The 9th, which was the last one, began to shine. The 9th movement. Jian and Mushan were full of expectations. The most powerful movement, even at the height of the sword ancestor's bloodline, only one person managed to memorize all of them. However, he was a traitor. A green light flashed on the mountainside. Then everything calmed down. Jian Wushuang was still standing there, with his eyes closed, recalling all the images and memorizing them. Then he opened his eyes and sighed, with a light flashing in his eyes. The heart-killing sword technique really is the most powerful sword skill sword ancestor created. Jian Wushuang thought. He scanned them all once again, and only one word could describe how he was feeling right now. Awesome. Jian Wushuang was good at sword principle, so he understood the power of this sword skill. In comparison, the blood-emptying technique and selfless sword technique, as powerful as they were much weaker than heart-killing sword technique. The heart-killing sword technique had high requirements. The first movement required a saint realm expert whose comprehension in slaughter origin had reached the pinnacle. This was the first movement. The other 8 movements were even more powerful and had even higher requirements. I have memorized all 9 movements of the heart-killing sword technique. However, I'm unable to even study the first movement, Jian Wushuang said with a bitter smile. Chapter 357, Multifarious Sword Skills. Chapter 357, Multifarious Sword Skills. Jian Wushuang, how is it going? Jinling and Mushan came over to Jian Wushuang and asked him. I've memorized all the movements of the heart-killing sword technique, Jian Wushuang answered. Great. Jinling was very happy to hear that. You've done as well as that traitor, Mushan said with a smile. Traitor? Jian Wushuang was intrigued by this information. This was your first chance, the heart-killing sword technique. Let's move on to the second one, said Jinling. Then he led Jian Wushuang to a tall tower. The tower was about 24 meters high, the top of which thrust into the clouds like a sharp sword. In the upper part, there were 2 elegant words, Sword Tower. This is... Jian Wushuang looked up at the lofty building before him. It's the Sword Tower, as you can see. Jinling said, it consists of multifarious sword skills, and it's one of the most important heritages of the sword ancestors' bloodline. Most of the sword skills inside were created by the top experts of the sword ancestors' bloodline, while the rest were collected from other places. There are many skills of various kinds. Only 1/10 of the skills were handed down after the destruction of the sword ancestors' bloodline. But at present, those are enough for you to practice. You can stay inside as long as you want and carefully choose skills you want to learn, either by reading or memorizing them, but you can't take them out of the tower. Understood. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. You can enter, Jinling said. Jian Wushuang thought nothing of stepping into the tower. As soon as he entered, he saw lines of bookcases filled with thick and dense books. Even with only a quick glance, it was obvious that there were tens of thousands of books. He went to the first bookcase, on which he noticed a list of books. He was immediately shocked by the number of sword skills that were recorded on the list. 6,400 third-grade sword techniques, 970 second-grade sword techniques, 10 first-grade sword techniques. Holy God! Jian Wushuang was deeply shocked. The amount of treasure accumulated by the sword ancestors' bloodline over the long years was simply amazing. There were a great number of the third-grade original sword techniques, as well as 970 second-grade sword techniques. If these sword techniques appeared in the Nanyang continent, a considerable number of Saint Realm experts would go crazy over them. But inside this tower, they were so common that there was almost 1,000 of them. As for the first-grade sword technique, they only existed in the legends of the Nanyang continent. That was also true for manuals, magic weapons, and elixirs of the first grade. Powerful as the Holy Emperor Palace was, it only had 8 superior second-grade manuals. But in this tower, there were up to 10 sword skills of the first grade. What did this mean? If these scrolls were taken out to the Nanyang continent, all the forces and experts would go crazy trying to snatching them. More importantly, even though only 1/10 of the sword skills were maintained after the fall of the sword ancestors' bloodline, the number of sword skills stored in the tower was still a vast amount. If this amount of sword skills still remained, one can only imagine how many there were when the sword ancestors' bloodline was at its peak. Just thinking about it was enough to shock Jian Wushuang. There are many types of sword skills from various fields, but which ones would be useful to me? Jian Wushuang immediately began checking them carefully. He started by checking the 10 first-grade sword techniques. Even though these 10 sword skills were no match for the heart-killing sword technique, which was created by the sword ancestor himself, they were still very powerful. First-grade sword technique, mind's eye sword technique. A single glance at the introduction on the scroll was enough to cause Jian Wushuang's eyes to light up. Mind's eye sword technique was a special and unique sword skill. Maybe it would be better to call it a method. It was a technique for warriors to condense their sword essence and store it between their eyebrows. Once released, the essence would surge out with a quick burst. Store sword essence between the eyebrows? Jian Wushuang smiled. He had heard of many sword skills, but the mind's eye sword technique was the most unusual and unique one that he had seen. But he also understood how devious this technique could be if used at the right time. What would happen if someone unexpectedly attacked with a powerful blast of sword essence from between his eyebrows in the middle of a fierce fight? There are definitely very few people who could anticipate this attack and react quickly enough. The longer the sword essence is stored, the more powerful it will be, and it can be released in a split second. What a brilliant first-grade sword technique. Jian Wushuang praised it inwardly. If properly applied, this sword skill could be a weapon of mass destruction, so Jian Wushuang was very interested in it. However, he was in no rush to practice it right this moment. He continued to look through the rest of the first-grade sword techniques. 4 of the 10 first-grade sword techniques were powerful attacks that worked well with slaughter origin. As for 2 others of the 10, one attached great importance to speed while the other one was abstruse. But they were both powerful. The above 6 were skills for a head-to-head fight, while the remaining 4 were quite unusual. Mind's eye sword technique was one of them. To Jian Wushuang's surprise, he also found a sword skill named Multifold Realm among the remaining 4. Similar to the sword realm that he had gained from the Daluo Heaven sect, the Multifold Realm was also a skill that could overpower an opponent by forming a sword realm. But as a first-grade sword technique, Multifold Realm was much more powerful than Sword Realm. It was divided into 5 levels. The first level, the First Realm. The second level, the Tenfold Realm. The third level, the Hundredfold Realm. The fourth level, the Thousandfold Realm. The fifth level, the Multifold Realm. Each level was more powerful than the previous one. The power behind the combination of Blood River, Slaughter Domain, and Sword Realm is my trump card. But it's a pity that Sword Realm is only a 3rd-grade skill. Even though I've mastered it to the highest level, Sword C, it still isn't that helpful when combined with the Blood River from Road to the Underworld. But Multifold Realm is different. As a 1st-grade sword technique, even the first level of it is much more powerful than Sword C. Combined with Road to the Underworld, the force will only be stronger. Jian Wushuang's eyes flickered. Among the 10 first-grade sword techniques, this technique was his favorite, followed by Mind's Eye sword technique. Inside the tower, as he casually looked through the scrolls, he would pay more attention to the techniques that surprised him, which increased his understanding of sword principle more and more as he progressed. While immersing himself in study, he lost track of time. Chapter 358, Blood Puppet. Chapter 358, Blood Puppet. While Jian Wushuang was digging through the sword skills in Sword Tower, the Nanyang continent gradually settled down. 1 year passed in the blink of an eye. After spending a year in the tower, Jian Wushuang finally exited. He had been constantly studying and practicing sword skills during this year. Now, he was like a completely different person, much stronger in sword principle and origin comprehension. With his excellent talent and the awakening of his double first-grade sword soul, which was very helpful in comprehending both sword principle and origin, he naturally reached the pinnacle level of origin. Moreover, he gained a new understanding of origin once he reached the pinnacle. This pinnacle was the pinnacle of the saint realm. It was totally different from momentum and domain because it was only a vague concept that represented a certain level of progress, but everyone in this realm would possess a different level of strength. If the origin was a vast ocean, comprehending a single drop of water would enable someone to step into the pinnacle of the saint realm. However, there was still a huge difference in power with respect to how much one comprehended. Currently, Jian Wushuang had only comprehended a single drop of water from the origin, since he had reached this realm just recently. Jinling and Mushan were waiting for Jian Wushuang as soon as he walked out of the tower. "You have only stayed for 1 year." Jinling looked at Jian Wushuang with astonishment and asked, "Don't you want to stay longer?" "No." Jian Wushuang shook his head and replied. He had already gained a lot from the tower and got what he wanted, so staying longer would bring him nothing but slow progress in sword principle. "I've received 2 of the 3 opportunities. What's the last one?" Jian Wushuang asked directly. "The last one is this." As Jinling waved his hand, a bloody shadow flashed and appeared before Jian Wushuang. It was a burly man in red armor, boots, and a helmet. His arms were wrapped around his chest, and an emotionless light shined from within his cold eyes. A puppet fighter. At a glance, Jian Wushuang could tell the man was not human, but a puppet fighter like Bai Ling and Mushan. "He is a blood puppet." Jinling looked at Jian Wushuang and explained he is not a normal puppet fighter. He was made to slaughter and destroy. Since he possesses no intelligence, he will only obey his master. Back when Sword Ancestor was at his peak, he was not only talented in sword principle, he was also gifted in regards to making puppets. He created Mushan and I and gave us consciousness. This blood puppet is the strongest puppet fighter among the ones he made. Jian Wushuang stared closely at the blood puppet. Without exchanging even one move, Jian Wushuang already felt terrifying pressure from the puppet standing before him. This blood puppet's body is as strong as a magic weapon. It also possesses excellent attack, speed, and defense, so it only has one weakness. Blood gems are required to power it each time. Jinling added, "Blood gem." Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. "Yes, like these." Jinling turned over his hand and showed Jian Wushuang 3 waxy yellow gems. Blood gems are the only things that can power a blood puppet. I will give you these 3 for now. Jinling handed the gems to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang held the gems in his hands and could feel a terrifying power contained in them. He was amazed. With these 3 gems, you can use this blood puppet 3 times. Of course, if you wanted to increase its strength, you could use all 3 gems at the same time. Jinling continued, but normally with only 1 gem, the puppet would be much stronger than an expert at the pinnacle of the saint realm. Upon hearing this, Jian Wushuang frowned, then asked, which means the more blood gems it consumes, the more powerful it'll be. Right. Jinling nodded. If you used 10 gems at the same time, you would reach the limit of his power, but that is the maximum. I see. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. Though the blood puppet was just standing there, yet to show his strength, Jian Wushuang could tell that the puppet was very strong because an overwhelming pressure had risen in his heart. With this puppet, he would have one more trump card. "Since you've received your 3 rewards, it's time for you to leave," said Jinling. Jian Wushuang nodded before asking, What level do I need to reach to qualify for the third trial? The third trial is different from the previous two. I have no idea what it is, only that it relates to a big secret. As for the level you have to reach, Jian pondered for a while and continued, when you become as strong as Sword Ancestor at his peak, you can come back here and attempt the third trial. As strong as Sword Ancestor at his peak, Jian Wushuang was astounded. With a bitter smile, Jian Wushuang entered the wormhole and left. Inside the dark forest of Tianzong Dynasty, Jian Wushuang sat down quietly at the peak of a mountain with his legs crossed and eyes closed. Soon after, a black shadow slowly split from his body. The shadow was none other than Jian Wushuang's slaughtered doppelganger. Over a year has passed. Now, my slaughtered doppelganger has finally been reborn. Jian Wushuang sighed in his heart. He lost his slaughtered doppelganger in Tang Dynasty when he was chased by Tanfeng. He had been working on this new one for over a year before he finished it. In the ancestors' land, I received a lot and greatly enhanced my strength. With the first grade sword techniques, my trump cards, and my new slaughtered doppelganger, it's time to settle the feud between me and Holy Emperor Palace. Jian Wushuang looked up, staring into the boundless sky. Then, a sliver of light flashed in his eyes. Meanwhile, an overwhelming killing intent surged out and swept through the sky. Chapter 359, The Selection of Disciples. Chapter 359, The Selection of Disciples. During the year Jian Wushuang was in the ancestors' land, the Nanyang continent was rather peaceful. The disturbance caused by the fight between Jian Wushuang and Second Holy Master concluded with Jian Wushuang's disappearance. Though Holy Emperor Palace suffered a great loss at Jian Wushuang's hands, that didn't shake its position as an overlord of Nanyang continent. The entrance to Holy Emperor Palace was on a huge island named Holy Emperor Island. In recent days, the cities around Holy Emperor Island were crowded with experts from every corner of Nanyang continent. Inside a restaurant in one of those cities, a large number of warriors had gathered, most of whom were powerful youngsters. At a table sat two young men and a girl. One of the men and the girl were excited and looked like they were expecting something. Soon, we'll step on a Holy Emperor Island. I really want to see the location of the overlord of Nanyang, Holy Emperor Palace, myself. The man and the girl gasped in admiration from time to time, their eyes burning with excitement. The remaining handsome young man with purple hair looked calm. Brother Jichun, what's wrong? We'll arrive at Holy Emperor Palace soon. Why aren't you excited at all? The green-clothed girl asked in confusion. Holy Emperor Palace. The handsome young man with purple hair, Jichun, smirked and shook his head before saying, the palace is indeed powerful and also good at training disciples, but there are too many restrictions. I would rather temper myself by traveling the world rather than staying in the palace. Like Jian Wushuang, a voice echoed. Jichun and the other two immediately looked toward the person who was speaking and bowed slightly. Elder Chu. It was an elder with tangled red hair. He looked calm, and his aura showed that he was at the peak of the saint realm. The elder casually sat down beside them. Cleaning his ears, he said, Jichun, I know you greatly admire Jian Wushuang. Sure, he's quite strong and generally recognized as the strongest genius on the Nanyang continent by all the experts. But until today, there has been no other genius like him in the history of Nanyang continent. You're indeed gifted, but still at no position to even compare with him. What you need is solid and steady progress. Don't aim too high. Jichun respectfully listened to the elder. Elder Chu continued, Holy Emperor Palace is the #1 sect in our continent and only accessible to top geniuses. All of its disciples are real experts. You three are the most talented in our desert dynasty, especially you, Ji. All of you should try your best to pass the test of Holy Emperor Palace. Do not miss this chance. It only happens once in a blue moon. Understood. Ji and the others nodded. While Elder Chu was talking to Ji and the others, a young man carrying a long sword on his back was drinking alone at the table beside them. Not far from them, the young man heard their every word and smiled. Today, I arrived at Holy Emperor Island from Dark Forest, just as the palace is holding a selection for disciples. What a coincidence! The young man, Jian Wushuang, smiled oddly. He had heard about the selections previously. Holy Emperor Palace held it every 5 years in order to select its disciples. Numerous experts from Nanyang continent would swarm to the island whenever the selection was held, for the only purpose of becoming a disciple of the palace and cultivating there. Holy Emperor Palace was an overlord of Nanyang and could overpower the alchemy school. So, saying it was the #1 sect in Nanyang was a bit of an understatement. For those experts of Nanyang continent, it would be good fortune to be able to cultivate in the palace. It was similar to the easternmost hunt, held by 12 northwestern dynasties in Tianzong dynasty that Jian Wushuang had participated in. Only some old sects had been present at the easternmost hunt, yet there had still been a large number of experts fiercely fighting over it. It could be imagined how much more fiercely the experts would fight in the 5-year selection. While Jian Wushuang was in deep thought, suddenly, wong, 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 a deep bell resounded from far off in the distance, reaching the city and the restaurant where Jian Wushuang was. The selection begins. Many young experts stood up the moment they heard the bell, including Ji and the others with him. Let's go. Without thinking too much, those experts rushed towards the bell. In a second, the noisy restaurant had become empty. Jian Wushuang was the only one sitting there, not in a hurry to leave. After finishing the wine on the table, he got up and slowly headed towards Holy Emperor Island. At Holy Emperor Island, an ancient and majestic gate surrounded the area like a sleeping dragon. Jian Wushuang stepped onto the island only to see a huge crowd of people from all corners of the Nanyang continent standing in front of the gate. Some were alone, but others were accompanied by their elders. In front of them, next to the gate, there was a long and towering staircase that led to the top of the gate. From the look of it, it had over 100 steps. Is that the famous Holy Steps of Holy Emperor Palace? Jian Wushuang smiled while looking at the staircase. The staircase was well known. Everyone who wanted to pass the selection had to pass this first. There were a total of 108 steps, with each bearing a powerful force. The further one went, the more pressure one would feel. Passing those steps was the first test in the selection. The following test would only be available for those who climbed all 108 steps and made it to the top of the gate. At the moment, all of the experts were waiting quietly for the beginning of the selection. Jian Wushuang smiled while shaking his head as he watched the scene. The selection usually lasts for quite a while. I can't afford to wait until it ends. Jian Wushuang smirked. Then, with a flash, he appeared at the foot of the holy steps.